Sabona mamncapsile. Iyasebenza nje lento yami noba isebenzi. Sawubona speaker.
Bona mkhaya wami njani?
Ngicabanga ukuthi ayisebenzi lento. Kanti iyasebenza.
Hayi, iyasebenza into yakho mkhaya. Isebenza kahle kakhulu into yakho mkhaya.
Kodwa
Hayi.
ngiluleke bakithi kahle.
Nami ngofakazi ngiyayibona isebenza kahle kakhulu impela lento.
Ungcono ke mangabe isebenza ke, hey.
Hayi,
Deputy Speaker wayengihlekisa kucashile.
Diba ngathi ndibiza umamncamane hayi.
Usho yena Mhlonishwa ukhala ngento yakhe engasebenzi.
Hayi uhluphile shame uhluphile.
Hayi uyahlupha shem umlotha.
Awusabona qhamukile.
awukodwa ngihluphe ngokuthini ngoba ngifakazela mina uSwat boy ukuthi into yakhe isebenza kahle kakhulu.
Ngicela nje lepha kula box ene mask ezizisponge ukhuphele i1 ba omunye umfana nizise.
Awufakanga mask kanti speaker.
Wandiyifakanga imask ndilapha kwami. Ubufuna nje uyifake noma ndilapha kwami?
Ndivuthetha ngendaba ukuthi mawuziselwe imask ndiyaqomba yini abakhona abantu.
Xa kufika abantu apha endlini baze bafike nokuyimask ihleli lapha ecaleni kwami. Ndilapha kwami.
Ndicimba baseduze kwakho.
Hayi abekho seduze kodwa ke ungeza uzobheka dadewethu. Ngoba manje esikholwa ngokubona. So ungeza uzobheka.
Ndizoza ukhona umngqusho apha.
Hayi akukho se-restaurant apha.
Namhlanje seku-22 days. Akusiwona.
I-2 litre ikhona phofu.
Bavala abantu o2 litre sazi bangena ngaphi manje.
I-2 litre ikhona.
Namhlanje impela hayi namhlanje o2 litre obani.
Hey. Kodwa nabahle bantu besifazane hey. Yazi ngiyanibuka anisebahle ngiyanithanda kakhulu. Hey labantu abanihlukumezayo hayi sengiyoboshelwa bona manje.
Oh bakithi.
Uphi wena kwabahlukumezayo umi ngaphi kunami?
Ngakuhlukumeza yini? Ngakuhlukumeza kanjani?
Angiwazi abasondelene nawe phela mina ngithi uyazi ukuthi wena ungaphesheya kwalapha engikhona.
Angazi ukuthi mawuthi ungaphesheya kanjani ngizosuke ngikhulume ngiyeke ngintedele.
Hayi khuluma. Azongisabisa.
Angusabisi. Ngiyayazi phela intombi yethongwa mina.
Ngempela wena bhuti wami bancome.
Hey manje ngisabathe ngiqalaza ujeqe angiboni ujeqe la.
Usefuna sikhulumeza se-Edward. Ngoma sikajeqe nentombi yethonga.
Yebo siswami.
Ngoma. Qala lapho nje kuthena umuntu ahluleke ukuncoma. Ubone ukuthi akundoda lutho lengancomi. Ngoma.
Yingakho nje ngincoma nje yawubheke nje izinto ezinhlo cream nje abahle kangaka awumadoda. Manje siyancoma nje sefaka unyawo ledadake ngoba ujeqe ngekho eduze.
Order Madam Speaker.
And ba break record.
Order Madam Speaker.
Good morning, honorable members. At this moment, may we all take a moment for a silent prayer or meditation. Amen. Honorable members, it is with profound sadness that we formally note the passing away of 3 children who died in a house fire in Ezakheni in the early hours of the morning of Thursday, 30 July 2020. The 3 children were asleep in the Hlubi family residence in Zakheni B section when the house caught fire. Mrs. Gabisile Gabisi Kakane, the Acting Chief Director, Research and Development Section in the Department of Social Development. Mrs. Sikakane passed on over the weekend. And our condolences go to families of the victims of road fatalities around the province in the recent past. On behalf of the legislature, I wish to request all of you to remember in your thoughts and prayers all those that have succumbed to the pandemic of COVID-19. Let's not forget to salute and thank all our health practitioners and related fraternities in their continued dedication and diligence towards their work despite the challenges and their disciplines bring. They are our heroes and heroines. On the same breath, honorable members, let's put our members, staff, and families in prayers, those affected and infected by the pandemic. As members, may we continue in our spaces to encourage people around us to observe and adhere strictly to disaster regulations to the level 3 the country is. May we have a moment of silence on behalf of those, in recognition of those who have passed. Wanga uThixo angabapha ukuphumla okungunaphakade. Honorable members, we have the following announcements to make, which is item number 3 on the order paper. Members are reminded that this virtual sitting will be conducted in terms of the rules of virtual meetings read with our existing standing rules. In terms of Rule 6 of the rules of virtual meetings, the quorum required for virtual sittings of the House are as provided for in the Constitution and the standing rules of the Legislature. Standing Rule 44 of the Standing Rules provide that at least 1/3 of all the members of the Legislature must be present to constitute a plenary meeting of the Legislature. The rules for virtual meetings also define present as follows. Present means the attendance of a member in a virtual meeting by electronic means in a manner that allows the member to join and participate in the meeting. The Secretary has confirmed that we have the required 1/3 of members present in order to commence the sitting. The sitting is therefore properly constituted. We will now proceed with the rest of the matters on the order paper. We have received the following apologies. Honorable Ms. N. Simelane Zulu, MEC for Health on Government Engagement, and Honorable Mr. M.E. Pakati, who has a doctor's appointment. Honorable members, I wish to take this opportunity to wish a happy belated birthday to Honorable P.H. Mbatacele, who celebrated her birthday yesterday, the 5th of August, 2020. I hope you had a pleasant day, chairperson of quality of life. May your wishes now and beyond be fulfilled. Today, the 6th of August, honorable members, is the birthday of Honorable S. Zigalala, the Premier of KwaZulu-Natal. May I take this opportunity to wish you well, Honorable Premier, today and beyond. May all your wishes be fulfilled. I also wish in advance the following members who will celebrate theirs in the coming days and weeks of August. Honorable L.S.H. Hlongwa Mazala, Honorable P.N. Msimango, Honorable N.L. Mbaipeli, Honorable N.M. Khoza, Honorable N. Simelane Zulu, Honorable S.H. Mtetwa, Honorable A.V. Khoza, Honorable C.J. Papas. May I take this opportunity to wish you all, honorable members, wish you all the happiness that the today and the days can bring, and all the blessings a life can unfold. Honorable members, August being Women's Month, may I take this opportunity to wish all women and girl children a happy Women's Month. I am also mindful of gender-based violence that lifts its ugly head amongst our communities. Can we remember victims of all forms of abuse, violation against women, children, elderly, disabled, and all other sectors of the community? I further implore you, honorable members, as elected public representatives, to become resilient foot soldiers in the fight against gender-based violence in our communities. In the mix of all these social ills that we're facing as a people, may we not forget and downplay the struggle of women heroes, women who marched against apartheid laws in Pretoria 64 years ago on 9 August 1956. This is extended to all women with the struggles that they face today as a result of the triple oppression that they may have. Honorable members and all the women of this house, being 35 years after the passing on of Umama Umxenge, may we continue as women to rise and face all challenges that are facing women at any given time of our lives. Honorable members, you are also reminded that the 2020 Virtual Women's Parliament is scheduled to take place tomorrow, Friday, 7 August, as per the legislature program. The attention of members is also drawn to the fact that only the program director, the speaker, the Women's Parliament delegates, the presenters, and the premier will be speaking in the session. Members are requested to link into the session as viewers through the joint meetings facility on the Microsoft Teams. The link will be sent out to members today after the sittings. Members are to further note that the session will be viewed by the public and external guests on the KZN Legislature YouTube live streaming facility. Members are further urged to submit disclosure of financial interest forms as soon as possible. The deadline has passed where these forms were due on the 30th of April 2020. Any assistance in this regard, please liaise with Manager Legal Services. Members, we want to remind you about the recent client satisfactory survey. The KZN Legislature Library and Knowledge Management Services is conducting an assessment on the effectiveness of the library services with a view to ascertaining members' interaction with the library and the quality of services provided. The library anticipates that the findings of this survey will possibly assist in improving the services provided and also assist in introducing new initiatives. The questionnaire was sent to honorable members via emails. Honorable members are therefore reminded and encouraged to complete the same legislature library client certification survey sent by Ms. Nomhla Mayeza via emails. Now, may we go to item number 4 on the order paper, announcements or report by the Premier. Honorable Premier, may we offer you this opportunity to make any announcements and reports that you may deem necessary.
Thanks, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, members of the Legislature, honorable members of the Legislature, the viewers who are in various platforms, we wish to make the following announcement. We wish to register our concern at the growing number of COVID-19 infections and deaths in the province. The KZN reached 1,000 deaths 2 days ago. And currently we have 88,868 positive cases. notwithstanding that we are inspired by the fact that we have 51,972 recoveries. We once again plead with all members of the legislature to take precautionary protocols serious, but more than that, to be the voice and ambassadors in the fight against COVID-19. Honorable members, the second announcement is that of the suspension of the Northdale staff for negligence. The MEC for Health in KwaZulu-Natal and the Department of Health have taken a decision to place staff members, the medical manager and the nursing manager at Northdale Hospital in suspension. This followed the negligence of the case where one of the patients passed on while waiting for service, which was observed in a disappointing way in the video footages. We welcome the steps taken by the Department of Health as they are reinforcing the culture of effective service by government to the people. I take this opportunity to inform the House that the Minister of Health, Minister Dr. Zweli Mkhize, will be from today visiting the province, where he will visit KwaZulu-Natal. Today he will be in Richmond and in eThekwini Claywood Hospital, together with the MEC, as they inspect and assess the state of readiness for the province to deal with the peak of the COVID-19. We're grateful of this and the work in complementing the effort we have put in place to deal with COVID-19. Honorable Speaker, Umsunduze municipality have been engulfed by the frog from the New England landfill site. This fog affected the entire area of the CPD, a number of areas. We wish to report that we believe that the work that has been done by the municipality so far is assisting in addressing this challenge, but we've further put in place a task team composed of MEC Dube Ncube from Economic Development, Tourism, Environmental Affairs, MEC Shomuka from COGTA, and MEC Pillay as the MEC champion to deal with this issue once and for all, because it is now becoming a trend that each and every year we will see this smoke that comes from this landfill site. We wish to inform the members of the House that as government will continue to fight against corruption. We welcome the opening of criminal prosecution cases by the Department of Health, by the Department of Social Development, following the forensic report that was conducted on the procurement of PPEs. At the same time, we welcome the arrest of the 5 officials from the Department of the Premier who had been already on suspension because of number of activities following the forensic that we conducted in the department. Honorable Speaker, let me finally wish all women and girls a happy, protective Women's Month. I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Premier. Let's go to item number 5 to announce the tables that we have. We have received the first quarter institutional performance report from the KwaZulu-Natal Legislature. We have also received the special report from the Auditor General on KwaZulu Legislature audit outcomes. The first special report of the Auditor General is on the delay in the submission of the audit report on the financial statements of the KwaZulu-Natal Legislature for the financial year ended 31 March 2020. The second report is of the Auditor General to KZN Provincial Legislature on vote to KwaZulu-Natal Legislature. The delay in the submission of the audit report on the financial statement of the KZN Legislature for the financial year ended 31 March 2020, and the report of the Auditor General to the KZN Provincial Legislature on KwaZulu-Natal Political Parties Fund. Are there any further tablings that honorable members want to make that may not be reflected yet? Honorable Chairperson of the Social Development Portfolio Committee, Honorable Swartboy.
Honorable Speaker, allow me to table two oversight reports of the Social Development Portfolio Committee. The first one, the oversight report to the NPOs, to Ugu District, and the oversight report to Inkululeko Development Projects and Ndumo. I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Any further tabling that, honorable members? I can see Honorable Hlongwa Madlala, the chairperson of the Human Settlement Portfolio. You may rise, honorable member.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I table on behalf of the Chairperson of Education.
Honorable Hlongwa, may you please switch your video on as you table the report?
It is on, Honorable Speaker. There is a technical glitch with the video.
Okay, now it is recorded. It is recorded that there is a technical glitch. You can continue, honorable member. Thank you.
I am rising up to table the report on behalf of Honorable Sbiya for the Portfolio Committee on Education for School Functionality.
Thank you, Honorable Hlongwa Madlala. Is there any further tabling? I see that there is no further intention to make the tablings. May we now? Oh, the other one, the fifth one that is there is the KwaZulu-Natal Treasury Municipal Finance Management Third Quarter Review 2019-2020 report of 31 March 2020. We are tabling that. Now, honorable members, when we move to item number 6, formal motions or notices by the Chief Whip.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, there are no formal motions and notices from our side. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Chief Whip. Now we're going to go to orders of the day. Item number 7.1, report by the MEC for Finance on the third quarter consolidated statement of municipalities budget.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Premier, colleague MECs and honorable members of this House, as mandated by Section 71, Sub 7 of the Municipal Finance Management Act, the MFMA, I hereby table the third quarter of the Municipal Finance Quarterly Review Report. This report covers the financial performance of municipalities in KwaZulu-Natal as at the end of the third quarter of the 1920 financial year ended on 31st March 2020. The consolidated statement provides the in-year financial performance of municipalities against their budgeted revenue and expenditure. It also includes the capital and operating budget performances, as well as reports on debtors, creditors, conditional grants, and compliance with the DORA and MFMA reporting requirements. Also contained in the review is a status report on the implementation of the municipal regulations of the Standard Chart of Accounts, MSCOA, and other municipal support and oversight. Assessing the expenditure performance of municipalities assists in serving as a control and management tool and also serves as an early warning signal for the identification of financial risks. Later, I will outline some of the challenges we have identified and how we plan to address those. But before I get into the details of the report, honourable members, please allow me to make the following points. Let us be under no illusion. This report paints a grim picture of the state of municipal finances. This is due to both objective and subjective factors. But as our Premier is wont to say, let us not just lament the state of affairs, the point is to change it. I believe we have the political will and commitment to do this. It will not be achieved overnight, but we can make significant progress and lay the foundations for sustained improvement. I wish to call on all our public servants to stand up and be counted. I especially call on our professional management, from municipal managers to chief financial officers and SCM practitioners, to defeat the narrative that we are a corrupt and inept state. Refuse to do wrong. It does not matter who the instruction is from. The law protects you. The law provides space for you to record your reasons and raise your issues. Our civil servants must be given the opportunity to move forward in their personal development. Civil servants must reflect on the ethos that seeks to achieve excellence and best practice that gets reflected ultimately in the institution they serve, in the organ of state that they serve. Ultimately, it is you, the civil servant, who will determine whether we become the capable, ethical state. This is not a time for petty party politics. Let us rise to the occasion. We require a united and collective effort at all levels, national, provincial, and local. I'm pleased to report that we will very shortly be finalizing a memorandum of understanding between Treasury and COCTA to sharply define our respective roles in this critical task. COVID-19 is exacting a heavy toll. What positive legacy can we create in return so that we can say to those who have lost loved ones, become seriously ill, lost their jobs, or face serious hunger, it was not in vain? The legacy must be that we change for the better, that we begin to deal with fundamental problems, we remain true to the values of our founding fathers and all who sacrificed so much. We must reject crass materialism and conspicuous consumption. We must return to a life we can afford that is sustainable. We must at all times be guided by what we are leaving for the next generation. We have great talent and potential in our province. I call on the eThekwini municipality to regain its status as a leading municipality, teaching everyone else best practice and cutting-edge innovation. You have done it in the past. Restore order and good governance. I also encourage Msunduzi municipality to persevere with their efforts to build a united, critical mass for positive change. Msunduzi is the capital city of our province. We all have a duty to contribute to its revival and success. The COVID-19 procurement regulations apply to municipalities as well. Municipal COVID-19 expenditure must also be disclosed and will be interrogated. We expect very shortly announced from our Honourable Premier setting out directives compelling detailed disclosure of COVID-19 spend by both the provincial and local spheres of government. We are also expecting the Minister of Finance to gazette serious amendments to the existing emergency procurement regulations. Honourable Speaker, allow me very briefly to outline an economic review and outlook in South Africa and KZN economic growth rate. This has been much in the public domain, and we've covered it in the budget speech as well. So I'm not going to go into detail with it. I think the Premier has just announced our latest statistics in KZN. But in short, the pandemic has not only posed a health crisis, but also worsened what was already a bleak economic outlook. And there's sufficient data to indicate that, and I'm not going to go through it, but it's set out in my speech, and members will be able to read it. But despite the gloom during this period, 5 industries made a positive contribution to GDP growth. These include personal services, transport, and communications, which grew by 0.5%. Government activity also edged up by 1.0%, while the finance industry expanded by 3.7%. The agricultural industry recorded a particularly good quarter as a rise in the production of field crops horticultural products, and animal products boosted activity by 27.8%. This was underpinned by favorable weather conditions and a rise in agricultural exports. Meanwhile, the 2020 economic survey by the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development projects that government deficit will reach 15% of GDP in 2020. This is a serious constraining matter. We agree with the observation in the report that the fiscal strategy has to sequentially cope in the short run with the impact of the coronavirus and in the medium term implement a bold consolidation to restore debt in a sustainable path while spurring potential growth. Honourable members, it is within this highlighted context of the economic landscape that I table the Consolidated Budget Performance Review, which covers the financial performance of municipalities in KZN as at the end of the third quarter of the 2019-20 financial year. I must add an immediate qualification to this report and some of the statistics that have been tabled. We have serious concern about the reliability of some of the information reported by municipalities, and if I may explain the context to this, members will know that MSCOA has been implemented over the last couple of years. What has happened was that they were implementing it in a dual way, a manual system and the electronic system, because MSCOA is an electronic system and that system that generates these reports. This is the first year where the reports were generated solely on the basis of the electronic system reports. We think it's a transitional phase and it will eventually be corrected, but despite those suspected inaccuracies, we believe that the broad trends and conclusions that we are drawing are correct. Provincial total municipalities operating revenue. By 31st March 2020, municipalities in KwaZulu-Natal reported having generated operating revenue amounting to 48.8 billion, which is 70.7% of the adjusted budget of 69 billion. The revenue generated was, however, below the expected straight line projection of 75%. The percentage is also lower in comparison to the operating revenue of 72.5% generated in the third quarter of the previous financial year. With regard to operating expenditure, municipalities had incurred operating expenditure amounting to 41.9 billion, or 60% of the adjusted budget of 69.8 billion. This was also below the projected baseline of 75%. Therefore, municipalities reported an operating surplus of 6.9 billion at the end of quarter three of the 1920 financial year. Capital expenditure, and this is where some of the serious anomalies emerge. During this reporting period, the municipalities were expected to have spent 75% of the 16.1 billion adjusted budget for capital expenditure. However, the municipalities were reported that they had spent 25.2 billion, or 155.9%, which significantly exceeded the available budget. And again, I repeat, I think this reflects the error in the reporting. Therefore, when compared with the total expenditure of 6.6 billion that municipalities had spent at the end of quarter three, this means the capital expenditure increased by 18.6 billion. I repeat the caution that I've already stated, and I'm not going to go through that again. The bulk of the capital expenditure by the end of third quarter was spent on municipal governance and administration at 10.8 billion. Repairs and maintenance. All KwaZulu-Natal districts, including eThekwini, had by 31st March 2020 spent a total of 3.1 billion, or 61.2% on repairs and maintenance. The reported expenditure for repairs and maintenance may be understated, as the Muzi-Wabantu, Pongolo, and municipalities did not report on repairs and maintenance. Except for the Zululand district with 95.2%, all districts in the province, including eThekwini at 63.3%, reported repairs and maintenance expenditure of below the projected 75%. I set out the statistics for some of the municipalities there, and I'm not going to go through that. But underspending on repairs and maintenance could harm service delivery, as we have repeatedly stated, and this is an issue that has been flagged by Auditor General in the latest audit outcomes report. For municipalities supplying water and electricity, the consequence of low expenditure on repairs and maintenance is evident in their reported annual electricity and water losses. Low expenditure on repairs and maintenance may also be an indication that the municipalities lack asset repair and maintenance plans or are experiencing cash flow challenges and are therefore unable to spend at appropriate levels on this item. Honourable Speaker, 3.4 deals with debt and debtor age analysis, and I'm not going to go into detail on that. I think it's continuing to reflect the historical trend which has been of concern to us for some time. In the interest of time, I'm going to go do the same with regard to the creditors' age analysis, which really is a deep dive into the 30 days, 90 days, and beyond. If I can go to item 3.6 or 3.7, I think it is 3.6, national conditional grants. In terms of the Division of Revenue Act, direct allocations to all 54 KwaZulu-Natal municipalities amounted to 6.9 billion, while allocations in kind amounted to 840.3 million, bringing the total to 7.8 billion. Of the direct allocations of 6.9 billion, a total of 5.6 billion, or 81.
Honorable Buthelezi, Honorable Phumzile Buthelezi, please mute your mic. Honorable Buthelezi, please switch off your mic. You may continue, Honorable MEC. Apologies for that.
Thank you. The main contributors to this over expenditure was the 10.1 billion spent against the municipal infrastructure grant and the 1.1 billion spent against the water services and infrastructure grant. Municipalities, however, attributed the over expenditure in the main to data string figures being incorrect, which is something they committed to fixing, and we hope we'll be able to report progress on that when we deliver the fourth quarter report. Non-compliance with DORA and MFMA requirements, and again, I'm not going to go into detail on this item, Honourable Speaker. It is set out there, but suffice to say that there are municipalities who are not complying with their basic requirements as far as timelines of reporting is concerned, and this undermines the ability to keep an accurate track record, but it's also reflected of their own inadequacies in being able to fulfill that function. May I go to implementation of the Municipal Regulations on Standard Chart of Accounts, MSCOA, which I referred to earlier on. Honourable members, as you will recall, the Municipal Regulations on Standard Chart of Accounts was promulgated by the then Minister of Finance on 22nd of April 2014. This effectively meant that from the 1st of July 2017, all municipalities and related municipal entities were required to transact in compliance with the MSCOA regulations. Provincial Treasury continued with the implementation of MSCOA in the province during the third quarter of the municipal financial year. It should be noted, Madam Speaker, that for the first time in South Africa's history, the reports for the 2019-20 financial year are prepared using the figures from the MSCOA data strings. The implementation of MSCOA in the province has, however, not been without any challenges. Some of the challenges we have identified are that there seems to be a poor understanding of the MSCOA chart and the use thereof. We have also noted that budgetary constraints are preventing municipalities from implementing new models or upgrading their systems. Madam Speaker, let me assure you that our MSCOA team is already hard at work providing support to municipalities as we want to improve the situation. The support we provide includes on-site assessments through which errors were identified and corrective measures required are discussed. But the crux of the matter here, honourable members, is that the municipalities must work with the vendors that they have employed in the implementation of MSCOA from the technical side going forward. In conclusion and way forward, Honourable Speaker, as I alluded to earlier, even pre-pandemic, we were not in the best economic and fiscal position as a country. Therefore, we are mindful that while this report paints a grim picture in terms of the financial performance of municipalities in the third quarter of the municipal year, by now the situation has been aggravated by COVID-19. Like all of us, municipalities find themselves with added financial pressures, but with revenue sources that are drying up. But we are not helpless spectators. and we must also guard against blaming everything on the pandemic or on the economic crisis we face. Looking for scapegoats instead of finding solutions to the challenges that confront us is never an option. I think members of this House will agree with me that some of the issues that have been raised in the report are not new challenges. And if I may just list some of them that continue to plague our municipalities are the following. The lack of resources due to the high level of vacancies, the resignation of key officials, such as the Chief Financial Officer during key period, non-filling of vacancies, significant reliance on provincial treasury support, consultants, or interns to perform the work of municipal officials, poor record keeping and maintenance of adequate supporting documentation. The Office of the Auditor General has over the years constantly warned us about the financial reporting lapses, weak accountability, collapse of governance, and exposure to abuse of the public purse in local government. Some of the challenges I mentioned above can be directly linked to some of the shortcomings identified by the Auditor General. In his latest audit outcomes report for local government, which he titled, and I quote, not much to go around, yet not the right hands of the till, close quote, Auditor General Kimi Makwetu notes that funds amounting to billions of rand allocated to municipalities are managed, and I quote, in ways that are contrary to the prescripts and recognized accounting disciplines, close quote. Concerning KwaZulu-Natal municipalities, the AG noted, and I quote, that accountability was not adequately practiced and enforced by leadership, and the failure of key controls continued. Most district municipalities continued to struggle with basic financial and performance management processes displayed by a lack of responsiveness to implement and monitor action plans and had weak governance structures that did not enable effective accountability, close quote. The AG then says, and I quote, leadership did not always influence robust systems of internal control to drive good governance and discipline. More focus must be placed on exercising political oversight and addressing the aspirations of citizens, close quotes. So this is a responsibility for all of us as elected public representatives to strengthen our oversight role, and as the AG says, place more focus on addressing the aspirations of our communities. In tabling this report, I hereby commit as the political head of the Provincial Treasury that despite all the limitations that exist, that Provincial Treasury will intensify its support to municipalities to improve the financial management, accounting, and reporting processes at the delegated municipalities and assist them in addressing their audit findings. And as I said earlier, this is not a mission that will be accomplished overnight, but with commitment, we will be able to set foundations for a sustained improvement in the performance, financial performance of the municipalities. Honourable Speaker, I thank you.
Thank you, Honourable MEC. The report will be subjected to the normal processes of the rules. Now, honourable members, let's move to item number 7.2, which is the debate on the commemoration of Women's Month. And the first speaker will be the report by the Premier in the commemoration for Women's Month, Honourable Esigalala, for 20 minutes. I'm sorry, 20 minutes, Honourable Premier, sir.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Honourable Speaker, Honourable Boys, Honourable Deputy Speaker, Honourable Ndobe, members of the Executive Council, honourable members of this House, Malbongwe, ko mama bonke bakwasase South Africa na KwaZulu-Natal. Since the dawn of democracy, this august House of the people of KwaZulu-Natal has taken part in the commemoration of the Women's Day and the Women's Month to mark the unparalleled contribution of women in the liberation struggle of our country. For the past 26 years, we have gathered in our homes, halls, stadia, and this legislature to remember this important day of the 9th of August, 1956, when over 20,000 women marched on the union buildings to voice their objection to the extension of past laws to women. The past law was one of the most despised expression of apartheid laws, which imposed untold indignity on the entire race of Black people by relegating the majority to being aliens in the land of their birth. The history of discriminatory passes in South Africa date back to the era of slavery in Cape Town, which sought to police the movement of slaves between urban and rural areas. They also became a cornerstone of the segregation policies of the Union government when it was inaugurated in 1910. 1913 in Bloemfontein, Charlotte Maxeke led women's demonstration against passes, which they saw as the symbol of slavery. But on the 7th of January 1919, Mama Charlotte Maxeke once again led Bantu Women's League, the predecessor of the ANC Women's League, to Prime Minister Louis Botha in another protest against the imposition of the passes in South Africa. It is a well-known fact that the coming into power of the National Party in 1948 further imposed this to Black people and women. The turning point was, however, in 1952 with the passing of the Native Law Amendment Act, where the regime announced that Black women would soon also have to carry passes. We today want to salute all women who participated in the 1956 march for their bravery and taking up campaigns against this apartheid law, and those would include Mama Albertina Sisulu, Bertha Ngowa, Rahima Musa, Helen Joseph, Sophie de Bruyn, Lillian Ngoyi, and many others. Honorable Speaker, history will correctly describe this women's march as a watershed moment in the history of South Africa, which cemented women's role as the bedrock in the mobilization against injustice of apartheid. Because of that march, today we can boldly state without fear of any contradiction that indeed the place of women is nowhere else but in the broader society, where they occupy every and any role equal, if not better, than men. This month, we therefore pay our homage and tribute to the stalwarts like Mama Winnie Mandela, Charlotte Maxeke, Lillian Ngoyi, and many others who were part of that generation. We equally recall the bravery of Fatima Meer, Florence Mkhize, Emma Mashinini, Sister Bernard Ngube, Lydia Kompe, and many others who participated in mass mobilization against the apartheid regime. We equally salute Portia Philandwandwe and many others who display bravery by becoming part of the glorious army Umkhonto weSizwe. On this day, we send our salute to the people of Umlazi, the Mxenge family, for producing and giving our country the activist of human rights in the form of Victoria Mxenge. In honor of these women and in pursuit of the ideals of the Freedom Charter, the Women's Charter, and our Constitution, as government, we have created policies and legal environment necessary for the protection of women, as well as ensuring their advancement. In this context, The economic emancipation of women must be seen as an economic empowerment of the society at large. All our provincial government are thus tasked to implement, monitor, and evaluate all programs which are meant to address women empowerment. The change in the socio-economic conditions of a woman is not negotiable, but must be entrenched and mainstream in every sector of our economy in order to ensure gender parity in society and equality for all. We also celebrate advances in empowerment of women since the 1994 democratic breakthrough. We've seen legislation, we've seen access to healthcare, education, and social facilities by women. We've seen our government asserting women in leadership position and ensuring that we roll out economic programs that benefit women. At the same time, however, we acknowledge that the depth, pace, and scale of change has been insufficient to ensure gender equality and achieve societal transformational goal we've set for ourselves. We've identified the gender-based violence as one of the elements that seek to regress the advances we have seen. Unfortunately, today women still bear the brunt of poverty, unemployment, and violence, including being raped and murdered. We have seen, according to the latest statistics, that eThekwini Metro, in particular Inanda, Umlazi, and KwaMashu, are among the most dangerous places for women to live. We, however, want to place our commitment that things will not remain the same, and we are not going to accept that these statistics remain as such and continue to define our life. Honorable Speaker, in addition to this, the effect of COVID-19 equally have imposed a number of such challenges to women and are constraining women empowerment and affecting the progress we've made in the eradication of poverty. We remain affected, especially because of this, by disproportionate effect of COVID-19. While the state of disaster was necessary, it has also affected the livelihood of many women, created impact on jobs, informal sector, informal economy, and as well as income amongst many women. However, while this was necessary, we are committed to ensure an economic recovery that will help South Africa leap into the equal society for all. Honorable members, South African women have taken their rightful place in parliament, government, and civil society. South Africa increased the access of girls to education, initiated bursaries, training programs for young women, and allocated funds for women entrepreneurs. More than anything, the democratic state have achieved in affirming women, but we remain concerned by the lack of progress in affirming women in the private sector. Over the period of, over the financial year of 2019-2020, our government is making strides to ensure women emancipation. Among others, we've seen the government led by the Department of ATIA placing a great effort toward increasing productivity and capacity utilization across women-owned businesses, enhancing stability of new women-owned enterprises, improve access to market and productive resources for women and for women entrepreneurs in the province. Enterprise development have seen ATIA disbursing a total of 14 million to women-owned cooperatives who are in clothing and textile, recycling, art and craft, as well as part agriculture. And these have created at least 91 jobs. A further 10 million was also allocated to support, through mentorship, 62 women-owned cooperatives that are located in Umkanyakude, Umkungundlovu, Amajuba, Uthukela, Zululand, and King Cetshwayo. Operation Vula, which was launched by ATIA in September 2019, have seen the allocation of 65 million to form a grant funding for the KwaZulu-Natal entrepreneurs, and definitely women are going to benefit from this. This is in a process of being allocated as we speak. The department have also conducted a number of capacity buildings and dedicated programs, including programs that are pillars of the Operation Vula, which is the overarching radical economic transformation program. In this regard, 40 different industrial machines were availed to a women-owned clothing factory at Umsinga. We want to applaud this work, as it is a work that is creating jobs in an area that is so rural. But we've also seen the support given to women who are part of the radical agrarian socio-economic transformation, to a point where they are supported through seeds and fertilizers. They are supported in terms of homestead water harvesting, supported by packaging material, as well as logistics that are provided by the provincial government. This support have enabled women-owned enterprises to supply the private sector as well as our government department market on weekly basis. And we salute this as part of the Operation Vula program, the RASET. The government of KwaZulu-Natal has also equally opened platform for women entrepreneurs to participate in the exhibition that took place in June 2019 in Durban, which was part of the partnership by ATIA and the UN Women. In this regard, 9 women-owned manufacturers were assisted to showcase in Africa Fashion Week in London. In this regard, we have supported a number of women-owned enterprises in ensuring that they become part of exhibition, mentorship, as well as ensure that they benefit from skills development. 4 women-owned cooperatives are now supplying in King Cetshwayo, supplying masks to companies such as Richards Bay Minerals, to the tune of providing 40,000 masks. And this is the creation of jobs for women in the province. Equally, we are continuing, as we have seen that 3 women enterprises were selected to send their leaders to China for skills development in clothing and textile sector. We've seen more than 67 women from KwaZulu-Natal being assisted also in a program of skills development, which is run by the Department of ATIA and the United Nations Women. We are also continuing to ensure the benefit of women in the Black Industrialist Program and in our special economic zones, as well as seen women-led enterprises investing their establishment of companies as they manufacture in Richards Bay and Dube Trade Port, with Ubuhle Towels in Dube Trade Port and Elegant Afroliner in Richards Bay, respectively, and they are investing each of them altogether more than $1 billion in chemicals as well as towel manufacturing. Imbokodo iyezenzela, it's one of the programs esiqhubekayo nayo siwuhulumeni through ithala uqinisekisa ukuthi iyakwazi ukuqeqesha omama ey'ndaweni zasemakhaya abakuma cooperatives kuthi labo abenza kahle begcine beyingxenye ye-top 20 enominatwayo ungenela i-competition yebhokodo iyazenzela lapha KwaZulu-Natal. To mitigate hunger and ensure food production, the Department of Agriculture, Rural Development introduced the initiative called One Home, One Garden. The main benefiting families from this program are women. Equally, in her budget speech, MEC for the Department of Agriculture and Rural Development, Honorable Bongis Mloyi, highlighted and reported about Utingo Organic Academy funded by women in agriculture, and today they are also partnering with Umhlatuze and provide support in women enterprises in agriculture. DART promote the participation of women and women with disability in all of their agricultural businesses through its Female Entrepreneur Award, and we salute the work DART is doing in this regard. DART is committed to unlock 10,000 direct and indirect jobs for youth and women. Honorable Speaker, we will continue to ensure women participation in all our programs, and one of those programs is IGULA, that is under the Department of Transport. IGULA is part of the radical economic transformation policies, and in this regard, it seeks to ensure that we put a set aside as well as support for Africans in particular and Black in general. It assists to ensure that Africans participate in the construction sector. And we salute the fact that 65 women-owned entities have benefited from this program. We further applaud the fact that the Department of Sports and Recreation is advancing the principle of equal pay for equal work as a means of narrowing the gap between men and women in sport, in sporting codes and athletes. We must assist the department in taking this commitment forward. Uma sibona ibafana bafana idlala, nebanyana banyana idlala, siyafuna ukubona i-private sector i-investa ngokufanayo, but sifisa futhi ukubona abadlali abesilisa nabesifazane bekhokhelwa ngokufanayo. Siyafuna ukunika i-commitment ukusupporta i-department kulokhu. As we conclude, Honorable Speaker, gender-based violence, it's one of the threats in our society. We are working hard with all societal organizations to uproot gender-based violence. We've developed programs that are targeting boys and men to protect women in their localities. We equally want to applaud the work that has been done by law enforcement authorities in ensuring that perpetrators are brought to books, but this is not enough. We're pleased that the killer of the 4 children in Waybank, Sbusiso Mpungose, was sentenced to life imprisonment. We're pleased by the fact that Menzi Dlamini in Escort was found guilty and sentenced to life imprisonment. Honorable Speaker.
Thank you.
Can I summarize?
Thank you. Your time.
Can I summarize?
Okay, I can give you 2 minutes that I will take from the 10 minutes of response. I will give you 2 minutes from the 10 minutes.
The year 2020, we are commemorating the Women's Month under the theme Generational Equality, Realizing Women's Right for an Equal Society Now. We've packaged a number of programs that we are going to run through this month. As we conclude, we want to affirm that as we observe this month, we recall that 2020 marks the 75th anniversary of the UN, the 25th anniversary of Beijing Declaration. We are also concluding the African Union Decade of an African Women, which was between 2010 and 2020, and we are committing ourselves to the advancement of the South Africa's AU commitment. It will be remembered that we have declared that this decade will be the decade for women's financial and economic inclusion, the decade of 2020 to 2030. Honorable Speaker, with that, I would like to say, let us ensure that we prioritize women protection, women empowerment in all our daily programs. I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Premier. Honorable members, I now will call the first speaker, which is the Honorable CQ Madlopa, the chairperson of the Women's Caucus, who will, for 9 minutes, represent the ANC. Honorable CQ Madlopa. Honorable Madlopa.
Siyabala njalo.
No, I was trying to open chair.
Now your time will start now, Honorable Chairperson of the Women's Caucus.
Thank you. Honorable Speaker, it is a distinct honor and privilege for me to address this August House in celebration of Women's Month. Women in South Africa played
Honorable Chair, may you please switch on your camera, your video camera? Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Are you holding my time, Chair?
Yes, we are.
Honorable Speaker, it is a distinct honor and privilege for me to address this August House in celebration of Women's Month. Women in South Africa played a prominent role in the struggle for equal rights long before any women's organizations were formed as early as 1912 in their first mass passive resistance campaign in our country. Women played an active role in the defiance campaign against unjust laws. In 1952, many women were arrested. Former ANC President Albert Luthuli wrote about the women's actions, open and close quotes, amongst us Africans. The weight of resistance has been increased in the last few years by the emergence of our women. It may even be true, had the women hung back, resistance will still have been faltering and uncertain. The demonstration made a great impact and gave strong impetus. Furthermore, women of all races has had far less hesitation than men in making common cause about things basic to them. This was an honor given to the contribution of women in the struggle for liberation in South Africa. The ANC Women's League approached all the women's organizations to set up a coalition soon after the unbanning of the ANC. 7 organizations joined and Women's National Coalition was formed and officially launched in 1992. The task of the coalition was to research, coordinate, and draw up a women's charter based on the priorities and concerns of women from all walks of life throughout the country. The charter was completed and handed over to the state president, Nelson Mandela, on the 9th of August, 1994, and was incorporated in the new constitution and the Bill of Rights. South African women across the racial lines have been the source of courage in the struggle for democracy. It is this reason in this month we honor and salute the brave women of the generation of 1956 who led a decisive struggle aimed at overcoming the deep-seated social, political, and economic
challenges that confronted the masses of our people. In this month, we celebrate their dedication, courage, and their vision for a world where women and men, boys and girls live together as equals. Together, we must continue to act to ensure the women and men in our country can live as equal beneficiaries of development. It is only through women's full and equal participation in all areas of public and private life that we can hope to achieve the sustainable, peaceful, and just society promised in our government program of action. Honorable Speaker, allow me to quote Indira Gandhi, the late India Prime Minister, open and close quote, by excluding women, men are depriving themselves of fuller emancipation or growth for themselves. And to be liberated, a woman must feel free to be herself, not in rivalry to men, but in the context of her own capacity and her personality. We need women to be more interested, more alive, and more active, not because they are women, but because they comprise half the human race. Women are traditionally consecutive, but they also have the genius of synthesis to adapt and absorb. That is what gives the resilience to face suffering and to meet upheavals with a degree of calm, to change constantly and yet remain changeless. Her message was clear that there cannot be true freedom without the full emancipation of women, and that women have the right to participate equally and meaningfully in all spheres of society. The historic March of 1956 generation of women was a turning point in the role of women in the struggle for freedom in society. Since the uneventful day, women from all walks of life became equal partners in the struggle for a non-racial and non-sexist South Africa. We are inspired by these women patriots who took up the fight for gender equality and freedom. We are inspired by the likes of Lillian Ngoyi, Helen Joseph, Rahima Musa, and Sophie de Pierre. We must keep alight the flame of hope and progress that these revolutionary women have ignited. We are forever indebted to these women who have fought and provided us with leadership towards equality. South Africa's democracy is founded on the Constitution, which gives the three arms of the state the power to eradicate patriarchy. Chapter 9 institutions were established to protect human and women's rights. We have a vibrant civil society that ensures gender equality principles are mainstreamed in all institutions. It is the struggle and suffering of women led by Mama Charlotte Maxega and many others that ushered in the rights and freedom for women that are in our Constitution. This freedom not only benefited the millions of Black women, but also white women. Madam Speaker, women were systematically excluded from the social, political, and economic spheres under the racist apartheid, sexist, violent apartheid regime. Women's lived experiences differed according to race, geography, economic status, and educational level. As women, we have made significant strides in ensuring that we are better represented and have a voice in parliament, in the judiciary, in cabinet, in the public service, and in the society at large. We have made important advances in improving women's access to equality, healthcare, education, skills, and the fight against HIV and AIDS. Our protection system has a direct impact in alleviating the poverty facing women and girls. This shows our commitment to building an inclusive, caring society based on social solidarity and social justice. The rights of women workers have been entrenched through progressive labor laws introduced by the ANC government. Women continue to face a deeply entrenched system of institutionalized patriarchy. This is defended and reinforced by justice system, our families, the media, and our religious system. Among the greatest challenges facing our society is the scourge of violence, of the gender-based violence, as Premier has indicated, which is deeply rooted in the colonial and apartheid past. Mr. President has responded to the call for the fight against gender-based violence with his commitment to increase the budget for gender equality and women's empowerment. Women experience the hardest hit during this COVID-19. They are facing risk of job and income loss and face increased risk of violence, exploitation, harassment, which has been raised as a concern by our Premier, Honorable Sihle Zikalala, who invited all sectors of society to fight this scourge. We call upon all women of today to emulate the visionary leadership of the heroines of 1956 who set out to build a safe and a secure country for our children to live in. We are pleased to report that our government is on course to attain the noble goal of uniting our country to build a non-racial, non-sexist and democratic South Africa. In pursuit of this goal, our government repealed all the racist, repressive and discriminatory laws that undermine the dignity and integrity of our women to ensure that women realize their full potential. In 1994, during the January 8 statement, the late President O.R. Tambo said, open and close quote, "It will be our special task this year to organize and mobilize our women folk into a powerful, united and active force for revolutionary change. This task falls on men and women alike. Let us work together to ensure that gender inequality, violence against women and children, HIV, poverty, and the leadership role of women in democratic governments remain high priority issues on the agendas of all spheres of government. I know we can work together and achieve justice for all women and create an equitable and gender-empowered women for the present and future generation. You strike a woman, you strike a rock. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. The next speaker is the Honorable PHN Buthelezi for 10 minutes on behalf of the AI. Honorable Princess Buthelezi.
Mhlonishwa Somlomo, ngiyabingelela nakuPrima wethu, amalungu ahloniphekile esishayamthetho. Nendlu yonke ihloniphekile kule nyanga sibungaza namhlanje inyanga yabantu besifazane ngaphansi kwesiqubulo esithi ukuzuza amalungelo abesifazane ukuze kube nomphakathi olinganayo. Okubuhlungu kakhulu ukubungaza lenyanga singaphansi kwefelimpisholo lapho sinabesifazane inhliziyo zethu zopha ngenxa yokushiywa izihlobo zethu emhlabeni, abantu besifazane abadlala indima yabo enkulu ekutheni abantu besifazane babonakale bengabaholi abalinganayo nababalulekile ezweni lethu ngenxa yombhedukazo kamashayabhuqe i-COVID-19. Lapha ngibala udadewethu uZinzi Mandela esidabuke kakhulu ngokuhamba kwakhe emhlabeni ngalolu bhubhane owaphuma kakhulu ey'ndabeni. Ngiphinde ngibale indlunkulu yesizwe samahahabe eMpumalanga Koloni naye osishiye kabuhlungu oyisihlobo sethu ongumntwana uNomusa ozalwa indlunkulu uMazungu esaphila owayegane inkosi unyanga yezizwe Cyprian kaBhekuzulu kaSolomon kaMshiyeni kaDinizulu. Sidabuka kakhulu ukuthi ey'hlobo zethu zonke zikwazi ukuthi zishiye ngalolu bhubhane nabanye singabazi. Ngesonto eledlule liphinde lehla ifelimpisholo endlunkulu kuhambe emhlabeni abantwana ababili abesifazane ngokugula bezongcwatshwa ngomgqibelo bobabili ngomlayelo wesilo ngoba basemzini yasendlunkulu eyehlukene. Oyedwa umntwana obehlala eThekwini uhambe ngayo i-COVID, akufihlwanga lokho. Omunye uhambe ngokugula okujwayelekile izinso. Baningi kakhulu abahlobo bethu asibehambe emhlabeni ngenxa yalolu bhubhane. Sizwakalisa ukukhalela kanye nokududuza isilo samabandla onke, indlunkulu yonke nesizwe sikaMthaniya. Sikhalisana nayo yonke imindeni esishiwe izihlobo kanye nabasagulelwa izihlobo zabo ngenxa yalolu bhubhane oluyigciwane le-COVID-19. Sengathi bonke bangaphumula ngokuthula asebesishiyile abasaphila baqinise ukugcina imithetho yokuzivikela ebekwe uhulumeni ukuze kunqandwe ukusabalala kwe-COVID. And then women's fight against gender-based violence. However, this pandemic came to destroy our families. South African women have been under attack for so many years. The blood of South African women and children has been spilled for far too long. Gender-based violence has reached alarming levels. A woman is murdered every 3 hours in South Africa, and many are assaulted, raped before their death. A lot has been said. Women have staged protests in every corner of our country, but nothing seems to work. The cruelty and used in killing women and children keeps on increasing every year. Just a few days ago, our Honorable Minister of Police, Begitele, presented the 2019-2020 crime statistics, revealing that KZN province is the capital murder and rape in the country, which is a really disgrace for our province and our country. Women of KwaZulu-Natal are not feeling safe at all, even in their own homes. Women are being terrorized by ruthless and heartless criminals who rape and kill them. Many women have been raped, killed every day. Society has failed women at every level. Criminal justice, law enforcement, government, and other sectors have failed women. KZN's crime stats demand action from the KZN, our MEC of liaison and KZN MEC of Community Safety and Liaison, Honorable Begintoli. He must come up with strategies to eradicate crime against women and children. Urgent action must be taken to address the scourge of gender-based violence. Many women have lost their lives. As the IFP Women's Brigade, we call on the government to ensure that gender-based violence cases receive priority. They've got special courts where they deal with them, not to include them, as I mentioned it in Bumbulu case of the Mutua family. That we would be happy as women that they prioritize it, the rape cases and gender-based violence cases are having a special courts where they take them as an emergency, not just as like minor cases, mixing with minor cases, and then they get long sentences. We want to see those people who abuse and kill women arrested and spending their lives in jail. People who prey on women must be weeded out in our society. Protection of women must be a 365-day project, not only during 6 days of activism. There's a need for a long-term approach that is not only numerical, but that is sustainable, that deals with the root causes of this scourge. That is the moral decay and lawlessness that has besieged our society on gender-based must come to an end. Women empowerment. The commemoration of National Women's Day in South Africa represents not only a strong affirmation of the historical contributions of that women have made in the struggle against colonial oppression and apartheid, but also the role that they played in fighting against patriarchy and gender inequalities. IFP Women's Brigade, we believe that women who fought for the struggle would be very happy if poverty-stricken women, particularly those in rural areas, could achieve some of the following things. They would be happy if women could be financially independent, have access to employment, if a gender-oriented approach to poverty reduction would concentrate on the economic development and empowerment of poor women. If there could be resource-generating opportunities that are easily accessible to women. The Sustainable Development Goal and Gender Equality calls for the elimination of all forms of discrimination against women and girls by 2030. However, as the IFP Women's Brigade, we believe that the government has not done enough in the last 26 years of to empower women in different sectors of the economy. Income inequality amongst women, especially Black women, has deepened, and remained stubbornly racialized and gendered. According to statistics, South Africa women earn 30% less than men. The percentage is even wider. Black women who earn average white woman earns 25,000 per month, while her Black colleague earns average of 6,000. Again, Black women dominate the unemployment figures of this country, while those working earn the lowest wages. Research further proved that white people are always likely to find employment, unlike Black people. Women equality will continue to be a pipe dream for so many years, as long as these inequalities are not addressed with the agency and they deserve. In 2020, we still have many sectors of our economy that are largely dominated by men, such as the mining, supply chain industry, and many others. There must be a campaign of change the gender narrative that seeks to address the lack of female representation in these industries. Therefore, the government must work hard in ensuring that even women in rural areas participate in the economy in order to create sustainable jobs. We also want to see women benefiting from BEE empowerment programs. The KZN government boasts about many programs, including Operation Phakisa, Operation Vula. Operation Phakisa must ensure that women are fully involved in the oceans economy. They must participate in the shipping industry. There must be a working relationship between the DTI, KZN Economic Development, and the Department of Small Business Development to ensure that women are fully informed about programs under these departments, specifically aimed at women empowerment. In this regard, we challenge economic empowerment entities to make its funding programs accessible to women in the rural area in order to generate employment opportunities. To promote women economic empowerment, government first needs to run programs on skills development, how to run a business, how to make that business, and how to align such cooperatives with existing business people who can mentor and guide them. Women dependency on social grants. Women need to be economically empowered with education skills and not just to be made to depend on government handouts. Our women are go-getters, doers. A mentorship program needs to be implemented in order for them to gain the necessary skills. Women need to be assessed and skills development need to take place according to their needs. They need to be connected to successful women who have already paved the way in various sectors and who inspire them to achieve more and have a successful business and hold powerful position that will change the economic prospects of our country. In this case, I even remember our first lady who was very much involved in business, Mama Lydia Zoneli, who is still alive, Umam Tebu, can also really help us as women to get information and train us, be our mentor. This is why it is important that more now and more than ever, our government do a deep introspective on how it can use those social grants to empower our people to be self-reliant and self-help. It cannot be right that our women are made to be beggars to the government. We demand that to see change. We do not want another generation of women that are dependent on government for food. Women must be given resources to start businesses, to venture into farming, to own means of production, and they are capable and willing to run successful businesses. We in the IFP strongly believe that self-help and self-reliance and economic independence will be.
Honorable Buthelezi. Thank you, Honorable Member.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Honorable members, the next speaker for 4 minutes on behalf of the DA is Honorable Irabe.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I hate to start off a debate negatively, but today cannot be a celebration of women, especially when today South African women are 5 times more likely to die of gender-based violence than anything else. To make matters worse, the recent crime statistics have just reaffirmed the fact that KwaZulu-Natal is the rape capital of the country. There is not a day that goes by that we are not reading or hearing of women being brutally attacked, raped, tortured, and killed. Yes, we must condemn these acts, and yes, we must empathize and sympathize with the families of the victims, but there has to be more that we can do. The time for holding summits and meetings about this pandemic is over. Action must be the order of the day. We must protect every woman. They are, after all, our grandmothers, mothers, wives, daughters, sisters, aunts, nieces, and cousins. Right now, it is not a case of if we will be raped and murdered. It is a case of when we will be raped and murdered. A famous female activist, Malala Yousafzai, once said, and I quote, "I raise up my voice not so I can shout, but so that those without a voice can be heard. We cannot succeed when half of us are held back." Close quote. This is what I'm doing today. Did you know that the majority of South African men rape out of boredom, for fun, or because they believe they are entitled to it? This information was received by a UN Special Rapporteur on Violence Against Women. If this is the case, we are surrounded by psychopaths, and with our inept justice system, there's virtually nothing we can do about it. It's reported that 3 new laws will be introduced in August to fight the scourge of this gender-based violence pandemic. Whilst this is a step in the right direction, it must be noted that even with the best intentions, there is no way those laws will be passed this year. The process still has a very long way to go. It is recorded that over 40% of women will be raped, and only 1 in 9 cases are ever reported. That means that if you do the math for KZN alone, more than 2.4 million women will be raped in our lifetime in our province. And the way things are going now, that massive figure will shortly be a dream. Gender-based violence is not a new phenomenon. The sad reality is that it was ignored and brushed under the carpet for so long. It's now come back to haunt us with a vengeance. Mr. President, you said that the National Register of Sex Offenders will be overhauled, that harsher minimum sentences for perpetrators will be meted out, that there will be no bail for those who have raped and murdered women, that there will be life imprisonment for acts of rape and murder of women with no chance of parole. All previous cases of gender-based violence that were closed will be reopened and reviewed, and additional funding against gender-based violence will be made available. In your words, sir, and I quote, "We will find the money," unquote. Mr. President, when, sir? There are fantastic commitments, but no timeframes were given. Will this be yet another empty promise from the ANC? In the 2021 budget of the KZN Department of Social Development, it is reported that white or centers of hope have increased to 22 around the province. Whilst that is a step in the right direction, it's just not enough with all that's happening around us, and there are far too women accessing these places. Perhaps we should be asking why. As I close, I leave women of KZN with the following message. Your soul is fierce, your heart is brave, and your mind is strong. Come forward and be heard, or this will never end. I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Member. The next speaker for 6 minutes is Honorable A.V. Khoza of the EFF. Honorable Khoza.
Abekhona besifazane. Ngibonge Somlomo, Thula. Greetings Somlomo Premier and honorable members. Ngifisa ukubingelela ngokukhethekile bonke abasifazane abakhona siqu kulo mhlangano nalabo abasemakhaya nalabo abawulandele inkundleni zokuxhumana. Siyazi ukuthi siphile esikhathini lapho singakwazi ukuhlangana amathuba. Kodwa siphoqeleke ukuthi sigqagqane, sinxusa ukuthi sonke siqhubeke nokulandela yonke imigomo nemibandela esibekelwe ukuze siphephe kulolu bhubhane lokhuvethe lomkhuhlane. Lo mkhuhlane ukhona futhi uyabulala Somlomo. Honorable Speaker, we are here today to add our voice in commemorating this year's Women's Day. We are saddened by the fact that we commemorate this day under very difficult conditions, where women are raped, abused, and even murdered by the same persons who should be protecting them. The question that we must therefore ask is, who is supposed to be protecting our women? Others may respond by saying that it is the responsibility of government. The answer is no. This is not the sole responsibility of government, but a societal duty. Every single member of society and community is responsible for protecting our girl children and women in general against gender-based violence, simply because perpetrators live amongst us. This we must do every second, minute, hour, day, and month of the year without fail. Having said that, Somlomo, the government is not absolved from its responsibility, but we are saddened by the reality that this government is dismally failing to protect women. As an example, a 12-year-old pupil was raped after she was chased away from school for not wearing a mask, which leads us to ask a question. Where were the PPEs that were supposedly procured for schools? Why was this child expected to travel 7 kilometers back home with no care and assistance from the Department of Education? Where was this so-called caring government? We know the answer. They were busy looting and enriching themselves through fraudulent tenders in the face of a pandemic. Another issue is in this house, Somlo. Recently, the ANC resolved to set up an inquiry against 2 members of this house, an MEC Hlomuga and Jomosbia, including a mayor, Umahla, who are facing allegations of women abuse. We call upon this house, and we cannot overemphasize this, that not only should this house follow suit, but to act drastically against these 2 members. We call for the 2 members to be relieved of their duties with immediate effect and be placed on suspension. We cannot turn a blind eye to the allegations that we must.
Honorable member, there's someone who's raising a point of order at the back. Can I get the name of the member?
Kaluza, Honorable Speaker.
Yes, Honorable Kaluza.
Speaker, I rise on a point of order to the member. There is no case that I know that is in front of the legislature pertaining to the honorable members that are in place. Therefore, the honorable member can't then say they need and speak against such until such time that there is a case that is opened against those particular members.
You are wasting our time. You are wasting our time.
Honorable Kaluza and Honorable members, we will let Honorable Khoza to continue with his debate.
Thank you, Somlom. The scourge of women abuse will continue because there are people who will come here and interject for the sake of interjecting.
Honorable Khoza.
Somlom.
Please allow Honorable Madlopa, allow us to hear Honorable Madlopa, who has just raised a hand. Honorable Madlopa.
Thanks, Honorable Speaker. No, we are just saying that because Honorable Khoza is talking about the members of this legislature, this allegation, you need to submit a substantive motion indicating his allegation against this. Thank you.
Honorable Madlopa and Honorable Khoza, the ruling is that if there is an allegation, Honorable Khoza, that you want to bring forth before the House, please bring it through the normal processes that are provided for in the rules. Honorable member, continue with your debate.
Somlomo, I will repeat that it is people like this member that interrupted me that perpetuate gender-based violence. The ANC has agreed to conduct an inquiry, and this House must follow suit. We also need to add, Somlomo, uthi izwe libhekene nezinselelo zobubha, ukuntuleka kwemisebenzi nokungalingani kwamazinga empilo. Kodwa uma sibheka ukuthi obani ngalezi zinselelo ezintathu engizibalile, sithola ukuthi ngabantu besifazane, ikakhulukazi abangabendabuko okungabamnyama. Uma sikhuluma ngodlame olubhekiswe kwabesifazane, sidinga ukucacisa lokhu. Ukuhlupheka udlame, ukungasebenzi udlame, indlala udlame, ukuswela uphahla udlame. Iningi lalezi zinto engizibalile ngabe kudala zalunga ukube sinohulumeni onakekelayo. Kodwa iqiniso lithi sinohulumeni wamasela onganazwelo nongananembeza. Ukweba imali yentelo kumele ngabe ixazulula izinkinga zabantu abahlwembu udlame. Abantu abagcina behlukumezeka kakhulu ngabantu besifazane nezingane zabo, ikakhulukazi ezamantombazane ezigcina ziyizisulu zokuhlukunyezwa ngezindlela ezahlukene ngenxa yokuhlupheka kwazo. Iningi lalezi zinto zingaxazululeka uma nje singathathela amasela nabahlukumezi izinyathelo ezinqala. Ake siqale kulendlu kuyo lenyanga yabantu besifazane yokubabungaza. Sifisela bonke abantu besifazane uthando, ukuphepha nempumelelo kule nyanga yabo. Sikwengeze futhi Somlomo ukuthi ngenkathi abantu besifazane bemasha, babemashela ukuthi bona njengabantu besifazane nezwe lethu laseNingizimu Afrika bakwazi ukuthi bafumane impilo engcono. Le mpilo engcono abangayitholi, they are unable to get access to this better life because they are being abused, because we have a government that does not care. We know that statistics indicate that women, black women in particular, are still earning less than white women. And no one is talking about that. No one is taking any action about that. But it is business as usual. Instead of us as leaders in the government of taking proactive actions in defense of women, we have people who will stand here just because there are allegations of abuse that are being brought against their members. They will raise all frivolous the issues that are deviating us
Honorable
from
Khoza, your
facing the
time has
reality that
expired.
says
Honorable
we have
Khoza, your
abusers
time has
among
expired.
us. Thank you very much,
The
Mr.
next
Somlo.
speaker, the next speaker is Honorable VR Mlotshwa of the NFP for 2 minutes.
Mhlonishwa Somlomo. Bengithi uzo-eda nokaphakathi Somlomo. On August 9, South Africa marked 64 years after resilience of 19. Speak.
Continue with your debate.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. On August 9, South Africa marked 64 years after resilience of 1956 took place, while our country is still facing a lot of socio-economic challenges, such as inequalities, unemployment, gender-based violence, human trafficking, etc. The rate of unemployment amongst women was 29.5% in the second quarter of 2018, compared with 25.3% amongst men, which clearly shows that the South African labor market is still more favorable to men than it is to women, and men are more likely to be in paid position than women. Regardless of race, we experience gender-based violence cases every day that shows that a lot need to be done. It's a time to look at our judiciary system and consider the issue of referendum on death penalty. And as NFP, we are not happy with how Zeta centers are being structured. Women are the pillars and backbone of economy and society. We need to invest in them and have more empowerment programs that will assist women from rural and urban areas so that we will increase the number of stable and independent women. Our government must also consider investing more in the ailing textile industry in order to save and create more jobs. As NFP, we call upon the Office of the Premier to create and introduce Women's Fund program in his office and allocate a mouthful budget to the program aiming to assist emerging women.
Honorable member, thank you. Your time expired.
Thank you very much, Speaker. Amadoda ahlukumeza abesifazane awashumpulwe.
Honorable PH Mbatha-Cele for 9 minutes. Honorable PH Mbatha-Cele of the ANC for 9 minutes. The chairperson of the Standing Committee on Quality of Life.
Honorable Speaker and boys, Honorable Deputy Speaker Mdobe, Honorable Premier Zikalala, members of the executive, members of the legislature, ladies and gentlemen. Honorable Speaker, I am honored to participate in this important debate on behalf of the African National Congress. Indeed, Honorable Speaker, it is impossible to speak about women in the context of our country without speaking about the struggle for freedom, because it was through the wisdom of women who sacrificed their lives to strategically drawn the apartheid system that oppressed, brutalized, and butchered Black people in their own land by Honorable Rabi's forefathers. As we mark 64 years since the historic March of 1956, women are still living in fear of gender-based violence and femicide. Gender-based violence and femicide are crimes that terrorized most households.
Order, Madam Speaker.
Honorable Rogers, what is your point?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'd like to establish what connection Honourable Rabe has to the apartheid murderers, as stated by the Honourable Member.
May I continue, Honourable Speaker?
No, Honourable Mbatha-Cele. If you want to raise that, I think you are raising a point on a question on a debate, and you know the rules, how you submit that. May you submit that in terms of the rules, Honorable Member? Continue, Honorable Member.
Kuba, his forefathers, her forefathers.
Phezu kwabo magaye, phezu kwabo baqhube. Honorable Cele.
Wespeaker, so memeza ke nathi wespeaker.
Honorable
Ubili act nje memeza.
Honorable Mngango, order.
No, you're allowing other members to shout here. We're going to shout also.
Continue, Honorable Mbatacele.
Honorable Cele, that started it.
You're allowing the ANC members to shout here.
As we mark 64
Honorable
years.
Speaker, you haven't responded to my point of order.
That is not a point of order what you are raising. You know what
No, it
rule
is a
you
point
must
of order. It's unparliamentary, Madam Speaker, to refer to a member of this House whose forefathers were murderers.
You raised a point of order, and I said to you, it's not a point of order. That we rolled and passed on, and I said the honorable member must continue. If you want to raise another point, I will request the leader of the DA. I will request the leader of the DA to at least respect that the chief whip of the DA is raising matters in terms of the rules. Can you allow the chief whip to continue, and I rule on that? Then you can come in and raise your own as a member. I am saying to you, Honorable Rogers, if you are now wanting to come back and raise that matter you want to raise it in terms of the correct and appropriate rules. Because
Madam
in
Speaker,
point
I
of
made it
order,
quite clear. I didn't hear your ruling. There was no sound here. Everything went blank on this side. But my rule of order, or the point I'm making, is that it is unparliamentary to refer to a member of this House whose forefathers were murderers.
Honorable Rogers, now you are raising that matter. We are going to go back and look into the matter. You raised the point of order earlier, and I ruled on it. That Honorable Cele was not out of order in terms of what you are raising. We are going to raise that and come back and provide a ruling. Thank you, Honorable Member. May we continue?
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. As we mark 64 years since the historic March of 1956, women are still living in fear of gender-based violence and femicide. Gender-based violence and femicide are crimes that terrorized most households and communities, as most crimes happens behind closed doors and only publicized when the offense has committed, and most cases when victims of crimes are no more. Worldwide, 1 in 3 women will suffer physically or sexual violence at some point in her life. This extends from rape and domestic violence to harassment at work. On our case as a country, this phenomenon is deeply rooted in gender inequality and continues to be one of the most notable human rights violations with all societies. This is simple because of our long history of triple oppression women had faced in the past, oppressed in basis of patriarchy, sexism, and economic exclusion. I think we can all agree that the time for complacency is long gone. It has passed and belongs to another era. The silence on violence against women and children has broken. Now is the time for stronger action. This violence against women and children has tremendous cost to communities, nations, and societies, for public well-being, health and safety, and for school achievements, productivity, law enforcement, and public programs and budgets. If left unaddressed, these human rights violations possess serious consequences for current and future generations and for efforts to ensure peace and security, to reduce poverty and achieve the ideals of free society from all forms of oppression. It also makes mockery of our rules of law, as gender-based violence is one of the most violations of human rights in the world, but one of the least prosecuted crimes. As the nation fights the invisible COVID-19 pandemic, a highly visible epidemic of gender-based violence continues to affect women and children. despite President Cyril Ramaphosa declared gender-based violence and femicide a national crisis in September 2019. Honorable Speaker, the latest crime statistics from SAPS stats indicates that KwaZulu-Natal has recorded an increase in sexual offences. Rape statistics are shocking when it comes to our province, with the 3 of towns being placed in the top 5 spots nationally. Inanda took the #1 place with 297 cases, followed closely by Umlazi with 293 cases. The 4th spot went 2 places later outside Pietermaritzburg with 236 cases. These crime stats indicates a society whose moral fabric has been eaten away. It is often concerned that educational institutions are becoming hotbeds for sexual violence. According to the latest crime statistics, 380 cases of rape were reported at either schools, universities, colleges, or daycare facilities. Honorable Speaker, we need an effort to build a responsible society that will value women as equal partners. As government, we need to intensify awareness campaign on gender-based violence and femicide. Private sector and gender activist organizations must work together with government to defeat the scourge and expose perpetrators in this regard. The men's own understanding of gender equality is another barrier which needs special attention. More often, they need to understand that this is not a zero-sum game. Equality for women, and by extension, preventing and reducing gender-based violence, benefits everyone. We need to mobilize young men and boys to intensify the fight against scourge of gender-based violence and femicide in our societies. We are aware and mindful of the stride of this government in putting measures in place to curb this scourge of gender-based violence, which does not only undermine and violate the human rights guarantee in Section 9 of our Constitution, Equal Clause, under the Bill of Rights, but also hinder our efforts for better life for all and possesses a serious threat to sustainable development. Not so long ago, Honorable Speaker, His Excellency President Cyril Ramaphosa announced the interim steering committee that will lead the implementation of an emergency response to gender-based violence, with the task to arrange for the implementation of range of action, which enable big budget of 1.1 billion allocated to the government. Among the actions agreed was the clearing of backlogs at forensic laboratories related to gender-based violence and femicide, and especially sexual assault, the hiring of additional staff for sexual offences courts, Tutuzela care centers, and family violence, child protection and sexual offences investigations unit, to name the few. Somlomo sifisa ukuncoma umbutho wamaphoyisa ngokushesha ubophe ezinye zezigilamkhuba ezenza amacala ashaqisayo. Nakuba-ke ubulungisa singabubona kahle uma kugcina kukhona ogwetshiwe. Siyaqonda futhi ukuthi uhlelo lwethu lwezobulungiswa luthatha isikhathi eside ukushushisa amacala odlame olubhekiswe kubantu besifazane nokubulawa kwabo. Kunesidingo futhi sokuthi kube noguquko ezinkantolo mayelana nokushushiswa kwamacala odlame olubhekiswe kwabantu besifazane. Lokhu kufakazelwe icala elidumile lika Cheryl Zondi. Leli cala laletha ukukhalaza okukhulu kumphakathi ngendlela okwakubuzwa ngayo izisulu zodlame olubhekiswe kwabantu besifazane, futhi lakhombisa ukuthi inkantolo yehlisana kanjani isithunzi kwezisulu zalolu dlame. Lokhu kugcina sekuholele ekutheni iningi labantu besifazane likhetha ukuthula lingazibiki izehlakalo ezifuze lezi ngoba babekwa amabala futhi bahlukumezeke. Honorable Speaker, women must have access to police to file a criminal reports and receive legal advice and protection. The response to violence must be immediate, coordinated, and effective so that criminals are punished and justice is secured. Courts and justice system must be accessible and responsive to criminal and civil matters related to violence against women. Women must be informed of their legal rights and supported to navigate the legal system. No bail should be granted to offenders of gender-based violence, and harsher sentences must be applied. There is a need for more women police officers, prosecutors, and judges, because we know that women serving on the front lines of justice, strengthening justice for women and children. Honorable Speaker, we firmly believe that as a nation, we will pull through this difficult period, soldier on and conquer all the odds that sought to reverse the gains of our democracy. We stand in the shoulders of giants, one of which we are celebrating his centenary this year, Comrade Umtomdala Themba Herikwala, the Lion of Midlands, whom is held as an exemplar of integrity, personifying the ideal of leader who for many years selflessly served the movement, consistently holding up the goals of a human and caring society. Umpepetwa was a great political teacher who taught generation after generation of the struggling. Many of today's leaders drank from the deep well of Umpepetwa's political
Honorable
wisdom.
Mbathatwele, your time has expired. Honorable Member, your time has expired. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker.
The next speaker for 2 minutes is Honorable Esther Rajbansi of the MF.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Greetings and happy Women's Day to all. Today we are reminded of the 16 Days of Activism 2017 theme, Honorable Members. Together we can end gender-based violence. That was 2 years ago. The question we should be asking is what ails human civilization in the 21st century? Why are women not given their due? Why are family values deteriorating? Do we lack dynamic ethical leadership? Politically, much has gone wrong for women. Honorable members, gender-based discrimination sadly starts from the womb, where female fetuses are aborted, as girls are considered a burden. South Africa has given the world many heroines to celebrate, who remain an eternal symbol of life-giving energy that integrates our people, our communities, and our nation. In the scourge of gender-based violence, we need to do root cause analysis, and this starts in our homes, schools, and religious organizations, empowering through morality programs. We must desist from believing that in South Africa, gender-based violence is a shadow of the COVID-19 pandemic. Instead, gender-based violence is the center of our existence. Please read the resolutions of the 2019 Women's Parliament Report, pages 4 and 8 of sexual abuse of our girls in our schools by educators. I agree with the Honourable Chair that we must prosecute offenders speedily. Our Honourable Premier is a firm believer that men should not be left behind in terms of understanding women and gender equality issues. So please ensure, Honourable Speaker, that our male colleagues are the role models. Finally, the World Economic Forum has stated that 31.4% gap to bridge gender equality will take the world another 99.5 years. Hence, the equality goal of 2030 will be missed by everyone if we don't act now to bring about radical gender transformation. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Member. The next speaker for 2 minutes is Honorable M.E. Phakathi of the ATM. He has tendered an apology. We will go to the next speaker, which is Honorable S.E. Manqele for 2 minutes for the ACDP. Honorable Manqele.
Greeting you, Speaker, the Premier, and all my colleagues. We, the ACDP, acknowledges and celebrate Women's Month, not only on Women's Day, but also on every day, as it render of the immeasurable contribution that women have made towards the well-being of the human dignity globally. Putting good laws on the book is not enough in South Africa. Law enforcement and court mechanism, like lawyers, have to be made friendly and accessible to women and children. Unless women in police stations in most police stations can show physically evidence of the violence she has suffered, police and law enforcement authorities are often unwilling to believe and assist her. So they have to show evidence, otherwise they say evidence is not enough. All those who respond to violence against women and children, whether they are police officers, judges, lawyers, immigration officials, medical personnel, or social workers, must be sensitized and trained to provide a response that is compassionate and comprehensive. We need to have a free, effective legal services in traditional courts or in municipalities. There is a need to get experienced and well-trained lawyers in helping the victims to take an informed decision. Court consultation is expensive in South Africa, more especially when you come to the divorce cases. Workshops are also needed just to remind and stimulate.
Honorable member, your time has expired.
Thank you very much, madam.
The next speaker for 4 minutes is Honorable S. Hussein of the DA.
Thank you, Speaker. On this occasion of recognizing the role of women in our society during Women's Month, I want to share with the House today a real-life experience of this woman from Phoenix. For obvious reasons, I will not reveal her name. I will refer to her as Samantha. Her story, like thousands of women in our province, illustrates the state of our government with respect to protecting the rights of women in our country. This is what she looked like after being beaten by her abusive boyfriend. So here's her experience. After being assaulted in this state, she went to the Phoenix police station. They refused to help her. They sent her to the Verulam police station. She went to the Verulam police station in this state. They refused to help her. They referred her to the Tongaat police station. When she went to the Tongaat police station in this state, they opened up a file, but the female officer who assisted Samantha claimed that her injuries were not serious enough to qualify as gender-based violence, then sent her back to the Phoenix police station. Look at this. Is this not gender-based violence? For 12 days, she was being sent in circles. All she wanted was for a little help and protection from the police. Her abusive boyfriend was threatening to kill her, and she had nowhere to turn. I had to call on the provincial commissioner to intervene. A protection order was eventually served on her boyfriend, and his firearm was taken away. While I am grateful for the intervention of the provincial commissioner, why does it have to be this way? She was the fortunate one. She avoided becoming a headline of another woman murdered by her abusive boyfriend, but not without 12 days of further abuse from SAPS. Our police don't care. They don't serve and they don't protect. As far as this case is concerned, and thousands of other similar cases around our province, SAPS is useless to us as women. This is why the police stations like Inanda and Umlazi are the rape capitals of our province, because the police there are useless. This is the reason why women don't want to seek help from SAPS when they are abused, because SAPS is useless. This is the reason why more and more women are dying in KZN, because they have lost hope in the people that are there who are responsible to serve and protect them. And part of the problem is poor training and the lack of consequence for useless police officers. In the last 10 years, only 630 officers in KZN have been trained on domestic violence. Today, I stand here embarrassed that despite raising these issues that require urgent interventions, women are still not protected. All we do here is give speeches, but nothing changes. I raised the same issue last year, but nothing happened. But then again, if this government is useless at controlling corruption, how do we expect them to protect our women? Speaker, I want you to know that gender-based violence is reaching unprecedented levels in our country and our province. If we do not do something about it now, we will regret it when women start taking the law into their own hands and fighting back. And when they do, I assure you, they won't be as useless as SAPS. Thank you.
The next speaker for 10 minutes from the ANC is the Honorable MEC Khoza.
Thank you and greetings. Thank you and greetings, Honorable Speaker. I hope I'm audible. Greetings to the Premier of KwaZulu-Natal. Greetings to the Honorable Speaker. Greetings to the Deputy Speaker and colleagues. As we celebrate the commemoration of women who marched, I want to open my debate with the quotes from President Samora Machel, when he correctly put it, and I quote, "The emancipation of women is not an act of charity, the result of humanitarian or compassionate attitude. The liberation of women is a fundamental necessity for the revolution, the guarantee of its continuity and the precondition for its victory. The main objective of the revolution is to destroy the system of exploitation and build a new society which releases the potentialities of human beings. This is the context within which women's emancipation arises." And I close quotes. That is why the Federation of South African Women yafaka omama bezinhlanga zonke ukulwela ukungalingani. They produced the Women's Charter eyalwela equal pay for equal work, yalwela equal rights in relation to property, marriage. As we pay tribute to 20,000 women of 1956, who played a significant role in building African unity and solidarity during the crucial period in the struggle to free Africa from colonial bondage, we commemorate and salute the women who made unselfish contribution so that all could live a better life. This day serves as a rallying point, not only to celebrate the achievements of women, but also to reflect on the progress made in gender equity. Let us seriously reflect on women's participation in political and economic processes. Much has been done and has achieved. However, more still needs to be done. The time is now. Let us refocus and re-strengthen our resolve to advance issues that affect women. Let us dedicate ourselves and do more to transform the lives of women, particularly women and girls living in rural areas. Honorable Speaker, it is with a heavy heart that one must acknowledge that currently South Africa, there has been a rise of gender-based violence and femicide. This is undermining the strides made in the advancement of women's rights and dignity. These reverse gains made by our forebears. Nowadays, the people request sex for marks. They make advances in the workplace, sexual advances, sex for promotion, which is uncalled for. We need to join hands and put aside our party politics. Let us stop pointing fingers and come up with meaningful contributions which will take the women's struggle forward. The gap that still exists between men and women in this country shows that we are still dealing with the challenges of the many years in the society. It is disturbing to note this increase of gender-based violence and femicide. At the beginning of the lockdown period especially, we must acknowledge the role played by the national and provincial government to introduce some interventions to cushion women from dangers while ensuring the development. As social development moves from social to welfare, from social welfare to developmental, must bonge the interventions by the president of the country. President urescuishile isimo during the COVID-19. He ensured that abantu bayaphila. With grants, ubonisile ukuthi he is caring indeed. Our government has been able to increase access to electricity to replace the use of environmental unfriendly alternatives. And that has lifted a burden from shoulders of women who over the years have been forced to collect firewood to ensure that there is food on the table for their families. Honorable Speaker, that means women and girls still face a huge burden, but there are interventions. However, government has made significant strides to ensure women get equal opportunities through provision of sanitary towels to a girl child, through provision of NSFAS, which ensures that umntwana waphansi le kwaqoloqolo, umntwana wasegumatana, umntwana waphansi ofafa, wakwamhlabi uyalingana, will have equal opportunities in life. That is a true significant intervention. Indeed, I feel strengthened in my conviction that there are good men and women among us and sections of our society who want to change the situation. We need men and women who are able to concentrate their minds on the high roads towards justice, prosperity, peace, and better life for all. This government has also ensured that women are part of RASET, Operation Vula, and Operation Sakimzuzo under ETIA, as Premier has alluded to. Umsinga Rural Women Factory, ubani oyazi ukuthi phansi leko Umsinga kungaba ne factory, a factory which is owned and driven by women. This has happened under this government. Women in entrepreneurs akhona aseqalile ukusenzela even ama-mask. It shows that government is towards the correct direction. Women must have access to land in order to run commercial farmers because they are capable. To ensure women full participation in the mainstream economy, a multi-million women empowerment pilot project was launched in Kokstad. We will replicate the program in all districts with the aim of exposing women and girls to the mainstream economy in all sectors, providing women with different business skills to compete fairly remains the commitment of this government. With our eagerness, we have to cut the chain of women's dependency on men. Definitely, that has been done through agriculture, ensuring food security by reviving one home, one garden. We applaud our government. At this government, we can point to some achievement to ensure women reach their fullest potential. Let us all stand up to fight gender-based violence in our communities. Let us not allow cases to be withdrawn. That will be a setback to the work done by Umnyango Baba Mpemba. Gender-based violence is a family, but a societal matter. Let us all join hands in fighting the scourge. Let us not play petty politics with gender-based violence. We won't succeed if we do so. We need to ensure that gender inequality and racism are fought with all our might and be defeated. We'll soldier on. Let us pull up our socks and rally behind the call made by our Honorable Premier, especially to make more job opportunities during the SOPA, the Sukuma 100,000, which will ensure that our youth are employed and get more time in job opportunities and job creation. I
Thank you, Honorable Member. Thank you, Honorable Member. Now, Honorable Members, the next speaker would be the response by the Premier. Honorable Premier. Honorable Premier.
Honorable Speaker, thank you for the opportunity. And once again, I wish to thank the contributions made by various members of the legislature. Honorable Speaker, on the 1st of August 2020, we marked the 35 years since the brutal killing of Mama Victoria Mxenge. Since then, we have been inundated by calls from various members of Umlazi society calling on us to honor Mama Victoria Mxenge by naming King Edward Hospital after Mama Mxenge. To all those who have engaged us on this point, I must report back that we have since engaged with the Department of Health on the matter, and we are hoping that that matter will be processed and given a favorable consideration. Honorable Speaker, members of this House have engaged with this debate, and we would want to thank all of them for contribution. Maybe before one can make any comment, let me indicate that the issue of gender-based violence and the issue of the emancipation of women is the issue that falls on shoulders of all of us. It will be a pity if anyone among us will want to play a political game out of that. This is one of the struggles which constitute the strategic objective, the ultimate objective of a struggle for the creation of a national democratic society. I wish to thank Honorable Madlopa for reminding us of the struggle of women in our country, its evolution, even immediately after the unbanning, and a need of ensuring that all women organizations work together instead of competing, irrespective of their own orientation, whether they are political organizations, NGOs, or any. And we thank you, Honorable Madlopa, for that. Honorable Buthelezi, thank you for highlighting the sufferings of women due to COVID-19, those who have passed away. But let me emphasize those, Honorable Buthelezi, those who occupy the front line of the fight as our healthcare workers. Majority of them are women in a form of nurses and doctors. We are with them. Thanks for emphasizing the gender-based violence, and it is our collective responsibility to uproot it. It cannot be a role of one party. Honorable Rabi, thank you for raising the issues. I fully concur that this matter does not need conferences, but it needs action. I think you are correct that we must deal as we are doing. The mentality among males of entitlement, this sycophant syndrome must be eliminated. But let us avoid using this as a campaign for parties. It is not a campaign for parties. The government have done a lot. We in the province are having men's forums. We are having the boys to men's programs. And all of that is the responsibility of the executive, but of yourself also as a member of this legislature. Thank you, Honorable Khoza, for raising this issue, but I think I don't agree with you on saying that the government is not doing anything. That is totally wrong. And it is unfortunate that you use the platform where we should be advancing issues to grandstand on issues which have not been where there are no cases that have been opened. You come and grandstand and think that you must politicize gender-based violence. Don't be an opportunist. Raise issues open and honest for us to debate issues. Even if issues are raised by the opposition, if those issues are genuine, we are prepared to take those issues up. Honorable Mlochwa, thanks for raising the point that we must continue to nudge the private sector for the transformation and ensuring that we affirm the role of women. The call for Women Business Fund is a call that was made to NC Women's League. And as you are raising it, you are not the first. The Women's League have raised that call. We will continue to explore, but thanks for adding on that call. Honorable Mbatha, thank you for emphasizing the issue of human rights, which is a fundamental underpinning feature of our struggle. Women's rights should be recognized as human rights. And also thanks for emphasizing that we must tackle gender-based violence in schools and in institutions of higher learning. Let me take this opportunity to commend the MEC for Education and the department for immediate and swift actions against educators who abuse girls in schools, as some of them have been suspended already. That decisiveness is what we need. Honorable Rajpans, thank you, and we'll continue to ensure that we deal with issues of gender-based violence across racial line and across the religious orientation. That I include Honorable Mangele. Honorable Hussein, the issue of engaging commissioner on the case of the victim in Phoenix, we want to appreciate you for that. And the fact that the commissioner intervened means that not all SAPS members are so irresponsible. And I think we must work together to ensure that those members of SAPS in Phoenix and Tongat who didn't assist the victims are held accountable and dealt with. But it is not all members of SAPS who are not responsible. As the commissioner himself made it his duty that he assist you, I think we ought to thank him, but then deal with others. Equally, we must deal with the police station of Inanda and Kwamashu and Umlazi, as there are areas of victims of violence perpetrated against women. And I think we must deal with that. Let's work together instead of pointing and being partisan on this issue. Honorable Koza, MEC for Social Development, thanks for emphasizing that we must uproot gender-based violence in all spheres, whether public sector or private sector, in all levels of the society, whether it is about education or it is about jobs. We must ensure that we deal with these issues of gender-based violence direct and with vigor. Honorable Speaker, in all that we do, let us be in unison. Let us be in unison and understand that we share a common responsibility of building a better society, a society free of violence, a society where all enjoy protection and are free to unleash their talents and potential. Let us protect women and children. Let us all play our role and make our own contributions. In the words of Mama Charlotte Maxeke, we must all draw an inspiration. Let those words propel us forward to eliminate gender-based violence, where Mama Maxeke said, and I quote, "This work is not for yourself. Kill that spirit of self. If you can rise, bring someone with you. Honorable Speaker, let each and every member of this House rise, but bring others, especially women and young women. Honorable Speaker, with that, I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Member. We have now concluded the debate on the commemoration of the Women's Month. Now, we move, Honorable Members, to the next order, which is the debate on the June 2020 School Functionality Program. We are going to call upon Honorable LXH Hlongwa Madlala, the chairperson of the Portfolio Committee on Social Development, to table the report on behalf of the chairperson of Education Portfolio Committee on the June 2020 School Functionality Program for 20 minutes.
Ngiyabonga Somlo. Ngibingelela amalunga endlu. Somlomo kuyintokozo enkulu for us to speak on this very important day after a subject of women abuse has been under scrutiny. Honorable Speaker, I am tabling the report on behalf of Honorable Sibia, who is not in the meeting today. Honorable Speaker.
Honorable Speaker, we can't see the member. Honorable Speaker, we can't see the member speaking.
Honorable Linda Hlongwa Madlala. Honorable Hlongwa Madlala. Please, thank you, honorable member. Can you hear now, honorable members? Can you all hear now, honorable members? Honorable Mwango, can you hear properly now?
Yes, I can hear.
Thank you. You may continue.
Sorry about the chairperson. I do encounter glitches with my camera now and then. Honorable Speaker, the first COVID-19 outbreak case was reported in December 2019 in Wuhan, China. Subsequent to that, WHO declared COVID-19 as a world pandemic on the 11th of March 2020, and South Africa recorded its first case on the 5th of March 2020. The state president, Honorable His Excellency President Matamela Cyril Ramaphosa, declared national state of disaster and the closure of schools on the 18th of March 2020, which was followed by the national lockdown after that announcement by the president. The Minister of Basic Education therefore announced the closure of schools and the approval of schools opening by the NCC and the Cabinet on the 1st of June 2020, after DBE consultation with stakeholders on plans to reopen schools with preconditions. Educators were to start on the 28th of May 2020 to prepare for the reopening after the Council of Education Ministers had met to discuss the whole portfolio of education. The legislature therefore took it upon its shoulders to conduct oversight in readiness monitoring program 2020 to determine the readiness of our schools. As we all know and appreciate, the KZN boasts the biggest numbers of learners in our system. And therefore, the legislature, under the leadership of you, Madam Speaker, and we really want to appreciate you for according all of us that opportunity to go out and study on our own how ready our system was at that time. The methodology implemented by the legislature selected 208 schools to be visited. Only 54 schools were not visited out of that 208. The dates of the visits were the 9th and the 10th of June, and the debriefing meetings took place on the 11th of June. Under school hygiene and cleaning, honorable members, we noted that there's been an appointment of cleaners from local cooperatives at EPWP rate almost all schools were provided with cleaning materials, school buildings and premises cleaned prior to opening. There was, however, confusion regarding those whose responsibility to disinfect in some instances, and members who are debating will shed light on this, Honorable Speaker. There was also a concern on the proper orientation on the use of cleaning equipment, as some of the schools recorded that there has not been much training given to the staff in that regard. With regards to social distancing, Honorable Speaker and members, the core prevention measure is 1.5 in our schools, and this therefore put more demand for classrooms of the space, furniture, LTSM, teaching staff, new ways of interacting and playing. However, with the grades 12 and 7 in our schools at that particular time, the floor space was enough. The problem was gonna come just when the Department of Education phases in other grades. The same problem is attributed when you look through the furniture supply of all our schools, and therefore the Department of Education had also prioritized storm damaged schools for both overcrowding and the vandalized schools. And I do want to pause here, Madam Speaker, and beseech honorable members of the House and all our people in KwaZulu-Natal to take care of our schools, because most of the schools were vandalized unfairly. People wanting desks, people wanting boards, people wanting the furniture that belongs to government. We do not think it's fair for us as South Africa to rip ourselves the very fundamental tools that we need to transform the life of our society, which is education. So as the Portfolio Committee, we really want to urge society to protect the schools as centers of human development excellence. On the issues of screening, Honorable Speaker and honorable members, almost all schools visited, honorable members, reported that at the entry of each and every school, there was screening done, there was filling of forms done there by our CCGs and our EPWP screeners that have been appointed. However, a concern was that from school A to school B, the forms were not the same, so the department didn't standardize the forms. The other issue that was raised was with regards to the reliability of reading by the thermometers at that point in time, and members also noted the aging and vandalized fence at both exit and entry points in some of our schools. Some schools had to convert classrooms to sick bays because there wasn't enough infrastructure for those schools to cater for isolation. Honorable Speaker, when we go to the issue of curriculum re-engineering, COVID-19 has actually brought a lot of disadvantage on the Department of Education, in the fact that when they had started the KZN Funda and radio lessons, they realized that it was not reaching all the learners in the province due to socioeconomic inequalities. Some learners do not have access either to an Android phone, do not have data. Some learners were not able actually to connect even on radio. The Department of Education, at the point of our oversight, Madam Speaker, had lost about 43 days due to lockdown, and thus the department had to re-engineer its curriculum and revise its ATPs and targets so that all schools will sort of start afresh. In relation to teacher supply, instructions for educators to start on the 28th of May were somehow moved to start on the 8th of June because there was an issue about the uncertainty, especially from the side of the labor unions. And so KZN had to start on the 8th. However, principals submitted their daily attendance and the stats was recorded at the time. It is with the circuits. More classrooms were therefore procured to support the new normal. Honorable Speaker, at the point of our visit as the legislature, we also recorded that there were age-related mortalities that are recorded under the Department of Education, not only affecting teachers, but also affecting cleaners, security, and other personnel that enriches the Department of Education. In relation to the supply of PPE, all learners, honorable members, were given 2 masks at the time of our visit. However, there was a report on the shortages in some schools for non-teaching staff that was not provided. The face shield was provided for each educator, aprons, gloves, and boots for cleaners and food handlers. Some schools did not have the full sets, but most of the schools had the full sets. The aprons were disposable and washable at some instances. At some instances, there was just a difference with that. Some schools will have both disposable aprons and also disposable gloves. So that was the inconsistency we noted. With regards to water and sanitation, which was a prerequisite for basic hygiene during pandemic, KZN is going through doubts. We all know that in some instances we experience water cuts. 53% of the primaries and 59% of secondary schools have running water. Rainwater had to come in to supply water, install water tanks, the whole reticulation system. However, there are notable challenges with that transaction even today, that in some instances the water what do I call it? You know, where you have got to put your water tanker, a stand, Honorable Speaker. That stands were not provided for, and so rainwater is back rectifying that. Municipalities, between the Department of Education and KwaZulu-Natal, there was an agreement. It's still ongoing that the department will provide water to schools, and dirty and leaking water tanks were cleaned by the schools. However, we noted that there is limited capacity on the side of the municipality, and also what was noted at the time of the visit was the poor service standard by rainwater. I hope members will expatiate on that during their debate. The other issue that has brought so much challenge on the Department of Education, Honorable Speaker, is the area of learner transport, the demand versus supply, which has been insufficient in the past before COVID-19, and it has gotten worse because of COVID-19. For now, there is no challenge with grade 12 and 7, but more transport is needed as the department is phasing in new grades. There has not been any additional money given to education for social distancing. It is there, but it is not enough. Screeners and sanitizers were provided. However, the biggest issue with regards to learner transport is the uncontrolled private learner transport, which we call omalume. In most instances, members notice that those cars are always overloaded. On the area of NSNP, the new service providers, Honorable Speaker, were appointed for 3-year contract, and this contract is adhering to WHO guidelines in terms of preparation of food. There is delivery and staggered distribution of food. The kitchens were provided. In some instances, you will have mobile kitchens. Some schools do have kitchens, but not in a very good state. There is a shortage of space and staff now because of the new normal and the additional cutlery and crockery, because learners cannot share anymore. It is adding another burden financially to the Department of Education. Honorable Speaker, we conclude by saying that At the time of our visit to schools in June, majority of our schools in the province were ready to receive grades 7 and 12. However, the poor management that has always been a problem in our schools compromised readiness of some schools, not only because teachers and principals couldn't manage, but the whole basket, which is inclusive of your SGBs and the community traditional leaders and so forth. That basket, Honorable Speaker, somehow compromised the readiness of some schools. That is why we mentioned at the beginning that there are some schools that were not visited. If you go through the report, you will see that some schools did not necessarily open on the 8th because of challenges that were imposed upon them by communities. The other issue that we noted at that point in time was the compliance to COVID-19 regulations, which was a must for all schools. Not all schools were complying at that point in time. We believe that at this time, schools are now complying. The water challenges are still plaguing our system. Rural schools are affected the most. Social distancing in most of our schools is not so practical as more grades are faced in. Schools are to employ new ways to deal with COVID-19 challenges. The potential challenges with the provision of PPEs to school are mainly the budgetary constraints and the fact that those that are supplied are not necessarily of good quality. And we are aware that with this new normal and the challenges that have been imposed upon our system, the school's performance is likely to decline. Teachers themselves are expressing the unhappiness. They are not sure what is going to happen, but we are very much grateful, Honorable Speaker, for affording the legislature to go out and view for itself the readiness that the MEC spoke about. Thank you very much. This is the brief report of the chairperson of the Portfolio Committee as presented by the chairperson of Human Settlements. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. Now we are going to have the Honorable T.S. Mjali for 9 minutes.
Honorable Speaker, Honorable Kuzeni, the Deputy Speaker. Speaker, allow me to start by saluting all the roses of our revolution and to say that there will never be a revolution without women. We are because of your fighting strength, and there can never be victory without your contribution. As we celebrate this Women's Month, let us declare boldly that we will continue to fight against any abuse of women on our everyday life. Women we imbokodo. As we discuss and debate the school functionality, the Department of Education in KwaZulu-Natal, in line with the instructions from the National Department, it was very clear from the onset that no school shall be open without complying with the non-negotiables. And these are what we call a part of the non-negotiables. It was the PPEs, which included for learners, teachers, as well as the staff, water and sanitation, which included the provision of water, JoJo tanks, and those tanks needed to be supplied with water, sanitation, where there were challenges of sanitation or mobile toilets had to be provided within the schools that had difficulties. Disinfection of schools, clean schools. The schools needed to be hygienic, clean, to be an environment that is clean for teaching and learning, and the hand washing station with the relevant equipment, social distancing in terms of the sitting arrangement in classes for learners, because social distancing is amongst the things that have been confirmed to be important. The provision of thermometers for the testing and the screening as learners and teachers arrive in school before they enter into the school premises. Teachers with the comorbidities were also requested or advised to apply in time so that a mechanism was going to be made for substitute teachers so that no learner should go to school without being taught by a teacher. The scholar transport, there was a training that was done for disinfection as well as social distancing in terms of the sitting arrangement within the cars. The provision of temporary classrooms where some of the schools were vandalized and damaged. There were mobile classes that were provided. All these, Honorable Speaker, were clear indication that as the government was putting the safety of our learners and teachers and staff first. It must be placed on record that the schools which had challenges of infrastructure or water and did not comply with the adherence of the regulation as well as the supply of the PPEs were not allowed to be open. This was also emphasized by the MEC of KwaZulu-Natal, MEC Msheng, who was very clear and firm on this conviction. Almost all the schools were provided with the non-negotiables. But yes, Honorable Speaker, there were areas that had challenges which required some form of interventions, whether with regards to water or sanitation, as well as infrastructure. But indeed, the interventions that was done through the joint operation between COGTA, the Department of Education, the Department of Water and Sanitation, as well as the municipalities, was able to work and assist with this regard. But, Honorable Speaker, we must touch in terms of the cost effect with regards to this. You know, for the same period, KZN has spent about more than 700,000 rand. Yet, Honorable Kika, in Western Cape, they have spent over 1 billion with regard, and this must be taken into consideration that KZN is far the biggest in terms of the education system, but they spend about 700,000. But in Western Cape, the so-called Western Cape glorious area spend more than 1 billion in terms of the PPE with regards to the same period in respect of the procurement of the PPEs. But over and above that, KZN was able to contract with the suppliers of more than 20 suppliers, whereas in the Western Cape, they chose to utilize at least one supplier in dealing with all of those things. So indeed, I hope this time around we will not have a halabaloo about Western Cape in dealing with these issues. Honorable Speaker, the opening of the schools was gathered by scientific advice from the scientific expert as well as the health expert. And this is what Prof. Karim once said, and I quote, "For as long as we do not have immunity and we do not have vaccine, we are going to have to live with this virus. This virus is going to pose a threat continually well into next year. So we have to find a way in which we can continue our normal lives. People go back to school, people go back to work in a systematic way that reduces the risk." He further went on to say, Prof. Karim, overall, there is no good reason why children should not be going back to school if we can put in place the protocols for social distancing and hand sanitizing. I think if we can do that, there should be little reason why these schools are not relatively safe. Having said that, we must expect that there may be small outbreaks in school, close quote. It is based on this that the government apply a gradual opening of the schools through phased up approach of the different grades, which is started by the grade 7 and 12, which was subject to the strict safety protocols. While it is true that there has been rise of infections of learners and teachers, just like how Prof. Karim had warned us that there will be a small outbreak in school, however, Honorable Speaker, it must be placed on record that so far, no learner or teacher were found to have been infected at the school, but rather such infections occur outside the schools, but only brought to the schools by the individuals. Hence, schools to date remain a safe environment for both learners and teachers. They remain a safe environment. Therefore, far greater safety measures at schools. There are far greater safety measures at schools than within our communities. Speaker, with COVID-19 pandemic in our country, we are traveling in an uncharted terrain. No one possesses experience or wisdom to know better on how to deal with it. We must ensure that in the process of fighting this invisible monster, we do not compromise the future of our learners. We have a revolutionary obligation to balance their safety with their future. What we can promise them is that tomorrow will be better than today, and we will work with them side by side during this difficult time. That is why, Honorable Speaker, today I am debating at the legislature to show them that if we are saying that it is safe to self-isolate, to self-distancing and sanitize and go to school, even us as honorable members, we should be back at work and interacting while we try to find a solution to ensure that we give them a better quality education. That is why I'm here today and I'm debating at the legislature, Honorable Speaker. Today, Honorable Speaker, that is why I'm not on the Zoom or Microsoft processes. This crisis must not just be viewed as a crisis only, but must equally be an opportunity to do things differently, to introduce new ways of teaching and learning. But most importantly, Honorable Speaker, we must be decisively in dealing with the existing inequalities within our schools, which emanate from the apartheid system, which had minimal resources and imbalance in resource provision to our Black communities in particular. We need to sustain the provision of water and proper sanitation to our school beyond the COVID-19 period, Honorable Speaker. The late former President Nelson Mandela once said, and I quote, "Education has been recognized as a route out of poverty for individuals and as a way of promoting equality of opportunity," close quote. Even these difficult times, we will continue to create a route out of poverty through education and secure a better future for our learners. It is on this basis that we say to our learners, we know that these are difficult times. We know that these are hard times, but we are going to work together and ensure that we deliver quality education for teaching and learning in your school under the safe environment. We will take whatever that is necessary to provide a safe environment for you so that we guarantee you a brighter future and a better education. I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
The next speaker is Honorable Tipim Tetwa of the IFP for 5 minutes. Honorable Tipim Tetwa of the IFP. Is the honorable member in the house? Is the honorable member in the house? We will move. The honorable member is not in the house. It's not connected in terms of the virtual sitting rules that says the member must be able to be connected and participate in the sitting. Now we will move to the next speaker, which is Honorable M.
In the house, look at the lead flap.
No, when I was calling you, you were not here, member. We could not hear you, or you have not switched on your gadget. You can now take the podium, Honorable Mtetwa, for 5 minutes. Honorable Tipim Tetwa. Are you having challenges, Honorable Member? Once the Honorable Member is sorting the connection challenges, we will have Honorable Dr. Aikika for 5 minutes.
When I may start. May I start? So, greetings of peace, honorable members. It is common cause that for far too many schools, at the time of our visits, they were in a deplorable state, let alone those that were damaged by storms, with repair backlogs dating back to 2016, and those vandalized and burnt recently. Last week, we were informed that 400 of the 467 vandalized schools, 109 remain to be repaired, and this will be complete by the end of October. We must go and see for ourselves that those that will be repaired, we must keep an eye on them, we must keep an eye on the timelines, and very importantly, we must keep an eye on the costs of everything. Madam Speaker, I have placed on record to the Education Portfolio Committee Chairperson that the committee has been at the forefront of oversight and played an active role in ensuring that we are the first ones to ensure that oversight is placed as a priority, not just the boardroom. In the recent lapse where we did not visit schools during the phasing in of the grade 6 and 11s. I am grateful that the Honorable Sibia recognized this and recognized it as valid input. And he committed that the committee will not take a back seat in the future and that we will not only just see that mayors and other local command council will take this responsibility, but members of the committee will do this. Honorable members, I place on record my concern noting the following. A, that on the 22nd of May, when Dr. Nzama, the HOD, by default, the accounting officer of the department appeared before the Education Portfolio Committee with these officials. 2, schools were initially set to open on the 25th of May, mere 3 days after that meeting. 3, anyone who obtains a recording of that meeting will hear him say that schools at the time were ready to open on the given date. And 4, not only that, it was in the same meeting that he defended the massively inflated PPE prices, the prices that we procured for the various COVID-related items, Honorable Mchali. Madam Speaker, anyone appearing or reporting to any of the House committees may not mislead a committee or provide information on one day and recant, change or deny it on another, let alone the accounting officer doing this. Worse still, when the information he presented only a few days before a presser, wherein the department's executive authority makes public pronouncements, bringing into sharp disrepute and making questionable, told a mere few days before, cannot be inconsequential. We must explore, honorable members, through the PFMA, what can be done to hold the HOD accountable for this and his officials. We also cannot have, when we question matters under the direct leadership of the accounting officer, a defense of irregularities, ineptness, possible collusion and possible corruption, and worse still, the suggestion of feigning ignorance of matters under the accounting officer's direct leadership. The PFMA is very clear, honorable members, when it states, and I quote, when the accounting officer does not divest the accounting of his responsibilities and concerns in the exercise of his duties delegated to the power, and so he is accountable to everyone. So when the HOD and his officials come before us and tell us that schools are ready, and when we go out and we see otherwise, in far too many instances, then, honorable members, this is incriminating, condemnatory, and impeachable. Of further and particular concern around the time of our visits was the serious allegation raised by teacher unions who suggested that schools were staged for our visits. Some members of these unions even joined us and challenged us to visit schools outside of that schedule and asserted that this was indeed the case. Was all of this true? It was evident from the committee's first round of visits before all members went to visit all districts that this assertion may have been very plausible. What we saw, Honorable Mchali, was children's food being prepared with water not fit for animal consumption, toilets burnt in one school to kill bees, porous access to facilities, inadequately trained screeners, leaking and broken hand washing stations on the very day that they were delivered, questioning their quality, clogged pit latrines, insufficient textbooks, and horrendous infrastructure in so many places, just to mention a few. Departments are working in silos. An example of Merlewood Secondary School, where sewer is flowing into the school, has been reported to the department over and over, with Cocta sitting on its laurels since February this year.
Honorable Member,
Notwithstanding all of this, Madam
Speaker. The next speaker will be Honorable T.P. Mthetho of the IFP for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
During this COVID-19 period, it was very obvious that we ran a parallel education system in an already deeply unequal society. There is one province with the former model schools which have more resources required to function during this pandemic, and the school with limited resources where most Black children are found. It is upon this august house to address the inequalities in our province and our country. The IFP is suggesting that a special task team must be appointed to investigate a way as to how we can close this gap. Over the past 26 years of the new dispensation, the Department of Education has failed to address the basic water, overcrowding, and sanitation infrastructure in our school. The schools in this province continue to have chronic infrastructure shortages. The COVID-19 pandemic has exposed for everyone to see how the government is failing to prioritize challenges facing our schools, as the same problem continues to persist year in and year out. In many of the schools we visited, and those not visited, there is a severe shortage of water and sanitation facilities. Even with the 20 billion allocated towards emergency water provision to the municipalities, it is perplexing that some schools still have water issues. The service of rainwater and IDT were poor, and during our visit, we observed that tanks bought by the department were lying in the school premises, not fixed, with no sign of water. Some schools use dirty and leaking water tanks where there were no hand washing basins. As one contractor was appointed per district with insufficient manpower, schools are still having the problem of water tankers and water containers for the hand washing basin are empty even today. In future, the national department must allow the province to do the work for the sake of close monitoring and accountability. Majority of schools in rural areas still have pit latrines. Some ablution facilities no longer have doors on them, and the ablution facilities are full. They require immediate attention. The Department of Education ignores the demand from school to have these ablution issues sorted out. The school do not have sufficient and appropriate ablution facilities. Many schools were not ready for the return of learners, as the ablution facilities are a total disaster and a health hazard, as the human waste is at an high level. I can quote isikole saseMemezela esasifica safica nje ukuthi akungeneki ezindlini zangasese. And this is a total unacceptable condition for our learners. There were many storm-damaged schools and vandalized schools that were still waiting for renovation. Almost in all districts, it was reported that many schools do not have sufficient classrooms to accommodate social distancing should other grades be rolled back. The failure to repair school will result into learners not practicing social distancing. Many schools which were promised mobile classrooms were still waiting for deliveries, and some are still waiting for those mobile classrooms even now. Furniture is still outstanding all the schools that were promised and given back homes. We wonder why the department has taken so long to buy furniture as promised. Installing temporary shelters is not sustainable. Some schools have been using park homes as classrooms for the past 4 years. This is yet another incompetence by the leadership of the Education Department. We challenge the KZ and MEC to ensure that these schools are prioritized with no further delay. We were shocked to learn that teachers and staff were not trained, some teachers, not all, actually, on how to use cleaning material. To those who were provided with training, it was of poor quality. They themselves did not understand what was expected from them to ensure COVID-19 compliance in schools.
Honorable Member. Your honorable member, your time has expired. The next speaker for 6 minutes.
Greetings to the speaker. Greetings to the speaker, members, and the listeners. Let me start by we come today as the economic freedom fighters to voice that there is no scientific evidence which guides us to the critical decision of taking back children to school under the dangerous and life-threatening times of COVID-19. Schools by their nature are dominated by children which are known to not having a fully developed immune system, which is a very critical factor at this stage, especially when we have to assess the school functionality in the midst of the global pandemic. We went through oversight these past months, which was to assist us as the legislature to assess the status and capabilities of our schools in creating a necessary and safe environment to accommodate school children during the pandemic and also enable teaching and learning. The oversight visit have confirmed negligence in terms of adhering to the guidelines of health given by the Department of Health, that is of wearing the protective gear by all learners, and there is no evidence that there is improvement in the situation. Therefore, this will lead to more COVID-19 positive cases in schools. The lack of adequate infrastructure in our schools exposes the lives of the potential educated and skilled labor force of our province to great risks. We have also observed a huge lack of access to sanitation. Our schools do not have the basics, such as running water, flushing toilets, and still use water tanks. In the recent weeks, we have seen South Africa take up its global position in terms of countries which are most affected by the global pandemic. This raises a huge concern as trends and statistics show that we as a country have not managed to successfully contain the spread of the virus. We are all aware that the country is at over 8,000 deaths due to the COVID, and the daily infection rate is above 5,000 consistently each day. This growing infection rate further exposes our schools to greater risks as we have no capacity, even for the health department, but more from education, which is not a specialist in this regard. We also note that till today, there is no cure against this pandemic, and efforts by the department must be centered around preserving lives and not with the need to meet artificial standards of pass rate. Even next year, 2020, children can still go to school or any other year after the virus, but we cannot fortunately raise the dead. It is the capacity that we do not have as human beings. The department has a duty to play an active role in ensuring that lives are protected and that it must play a meaningful role to this fact. We have observed with pain and sadness that families have to bury their children and teachers succumbing to the virus, but of the passion and loyalty to education. Passion and loyalty that kills and exposes us to the unnecessary victims should never be celebrated. The numbers of students who were affected were rising up speedily before this break, and until now we have no scientific evidence which suggests that these numbers will decrease. A major contributing factor to the trend, the rapid increase in school infections is the transport arrangement, where public transport is taking full capacity at short distance, which is the range for school goers. The EFF have long proposed that this government must consider the responsibility of building its own capacity to transport school children, and we are confident at a time like this, this will be among the pride and glory of a caring government. We have also noted the levels of corruption throughout this period, where government tenders are given to friends and spouses and comrades, reported by our media. We have heard reports of the inflation of PPEs prices, where people see the pandemic as a business opportunity and not about saving lives of people. How many more children should be infected by the COVID-19 till our government realizes that schools should be closed down until the pandemic has come to an end? The EFF once more, sorry, the EFF says it once more that a caring government which has a vision and is committed to use education as a primary tool to transform society would have built the necessary capacity by having safe and running water, by having
Thank you,
adequate
Honorable Member. Your
infrastructure,
time has expired.
and
Your time
also
has
its own
expired.
transport,
The next
which
speaker
at
is
this time will
Honorable
be very
Aram
significant
Lotwa
in
for
the
2
fight
minutes.
against
The next speaker
invisible
is
enemies.
Honorable
Thank you.
Aram. Honorable members, when your time has expired, you must stop. Honorable Aram Lotwa for 2 minutes.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. On the 2nd of June 2020, the department released a statement concerning the disappearance of large quantities of PPEs within the province. The MEC directed the HOD to urgently investigate regarding this matter. The question is, what were the findings? As the NFP were concerned that the disappearance of the PPEs is linked to the recent corruption activities that has surfaced in our country. Somlomo, a poor services rendered by rainwater resulted a disaster in our school. Jojo tank abafakwanga amanzi ezikoleni ngesikhathi zivulwa. Ojojo tank ababekwanga kuma stands abo, babelele phansi la ababekhona. Abanye nanamhlanje Somlomo basadeliver ojojo tank njengoba sikhuluma nje kuleli viki. Washing stations were not mounted in some of our schools. Some were not delivered. Some teachers were not at school. Some were there. Thermometers eksena bengasebenzi Somlomo ezikoleni azasebenze emini. Kwezinye indawo iyodwa ima ingasebenzi sekuyangenwa bekungahlelekile ngendlela efanele. And other things Somlomo, ukudla kwengane kwadeliverwa konke.
Honorable Member, your time has expired. The next speaker for 9 minutes is Honorable VP Kaluza, the Deputy Chief Whip, for 9 minutes. Honorable Deputy Chief Whip.
Honorable Speaker Mahubela, Deputy Speaker Siwa, Premier Kuzeni, honorable members, as we join millions of South Africans in celebrating the Women's Month, allow me to pay tribute to Mama Victoria Nonyamezelo Mxenge, one of the women who confronted apartheid regime head on, one of the women who stood for justice and kept the fire burning when it was not fashionable, one of the women who was unfortunately silenced by the evil apartheid regime. They thought, Honorable Speaker, that they had silenced her, but little did they know that she had completed her story, a story that would be told to generations 35 years on and beyond. Honorable Speaker, before I begin my debate, Ngicela ukuthi amalunga ahloniphekile akuleshamthetho anga-generalize. We have about 6,448 schools in the province of KwaZulu-Natal. So when they say many schools, they need to indicate which schools in particular they're referring to. The challenges that are in those schools, what are the challenges? So it's going to be very disingenuous for honorable members who went to oversight and come back and not give specifics, but instead they choose to generalize, when they had ample opportunity to even direct those questions to the department through the portfolio committee. So ilokho ndisicelayo, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, as I go on my debate on the 28th and 29th of May 2020, the Education Portfolio Committee embarked on an oversight to assess the state of readiness as we were anxiously awaiting the reopening of schools after the national lockdown had been imposed by the President. We also, as this House, on the 9th to the 11th of June, conducted school readiness program where we assessed whether the committed deliverables relating to COVID-19 compliance were in place. However, we find ourselves in a situation where we had to decide whether we save the school calendar or we betray future generation. As we do some soul searching, we must also reflect on our own shortcomings and be honest about them if we are to build a prosperous future for our children. We need to respond to the critical question about our education infrastructure. And Honorable Speaker, when I say infrastructure, I mean both the hard and soft packages that form a school, meaning the walls, the desk, and the material used for teaching. We must question our planning, whether it's forecast in the future or it's going with the flow without addressing or mapping the desired future aspects of our education system. What impact should the system have towards building the economy and, more importantly, the social character of future leaders? The 2019 manifesto of the African National Congress directs us that the curriculum must prepare our learners for the fourth industrial revolution in line with the Freedom Charter that the doors of learning shall be open to all. One can correctly argue that what good will it do to open the doors of learning of a rundown building with no proper tools for teaching? The truth is that it will be a futile exercise. Without sounding like a praise singer for the MEC, Honorable Speaker, we have in previous debates noted the good work that is being done in ensuring that proper infrastructure is built, especially for our rural schools. And I refer to the Honorable MEC when I say our people, and especially the youth, are eager for an education system that responds to societal challenges. Great scholars of psychology agree that the environment plays a major role in shaping one's behavior, and therefore, Honorable MEC, I say to you, solutions to African and local problems will be generated by young people who are awaiting similar infrastructure like the one you built at Emadungeni. We say this fully well aware that you will need at least R1 billion a year for infrastructure alone in order to attempt to deal with the infrastructural challenges in our schools. And we say this fully aware that we still live in a society where it has become normal to burn down school like it happened in Bambazi High School in Bergville, or the state-of-the-art equipment that was stolen at eThekwini Primary School in Kwamashu, or even just to destroy equipment like it was done at Tunjwana Primary in Bend. We know that this only sets the department back in its endeavors to correct the imbalances of the past. I must also, Honorable Speaker, applaud the department for taking the oversight recommendations serious by ensuring that issues that are raised are resolved, and when it's not possible to resolve them immediately, temporal measures are put in place. We saw this when we visited Kabangaye Primary and Thokozwayo Primary School in KwaZulu-Natal, and I must say that we were with Honorable Dlamini when we agreed that indeed the department had committed to certain deliverables. But also when we raised certain issues with the department that related to water and sanitation, a day later a report on measures that were put in place to address the challenges was tabled. We also saw the same when we visited Nzamalanga High School and Nqekazi in Umkhanyakude, where there was a challenge of water, and the intervention from the district municipality is highly applauded. We are, however, appealing to the department to speed up processes of assisting Luboko High School at Emanyiseni with the water challenges that they continue to face in the school premises. We must indicate also that we are aware the department in the province has taken responsibility over some issues that are no fault of their own. We have noted the department being blamed for water tankers that are procured at a national level, and had not reached the school at specified times, and appeal to committee members of the Portfolio Committee to follow up with the department on issues of implementing agents that tends to hinder progress in the service delivery as we had agreed in the Portfolio Committee. Honorable Speaker, when members of this House conducted their oversight, we saw firsthand the challenges that still needs to be addressed on issues of sanitation in our schools, and it remains one that must be addressed. And we must note that the temporal interventions of chemical ablution facilities remain just that, temporal measures, and a permanent solution is urgently needed. We are also not blind to the fact that some of these issues require social partnerships. And to this effect, we request COGTA to play a role in facilitating such issues and ensure its resolution. The issue of water and sanitation require concerted efforts if we are to win the battle against this pandemic. We believe that a democratic government has many role players, and therefore we call on civic society structures to work and partner with government to defeat this pandemic. Honorable Speaker, we note with pride the efforts that the MEC has made in ensuring the safety of learners and teachers by going an extra mile in addressing some of the challenges. We must also, without fear and favor, critique where we feel the department is lagging behind or is challenged. We note that some of these issues may be beyond the department's control as schools reopen. We are aware that some of the learners are or will be using private learner transport whose regulations may not be monitored effectively. However, we humbly request all social partners to work with the department to ensure that they all abide by the regulations in order to curb new infections. And where it is the responsibility of the department, as this august House, we will be watching like hawks of any transgressions that will take place. We also plead with the National Treasury ukuthi bakithi akalule isandla to the department so that the department can complete projects that are already in the pipeline. If the House can remember, the MEC had announced new projects to be constructed and some to be completed that include the state-of-the-art Maths and Science Academy, as well as the state-of-the-art school for learners with autism. This is the negative impact should there be any further budget cuts in the Department of Education in the province. And I'm in no means trying to play the devil's advocate, Honorable Speaker. However, we have a duty to protect and ensure that our provincial infrastructure meets world standards. We must commend the commitment of teachers who went to war with uncertainties of a safe return. And we are saying to them, they are our heroes and heroines. And surely the class of 2020 will forever be grateful for the selfless act in ensuring that the doors of learning continue to be open in our schools. We note that they're facing the Department of Education. But if we work together as this House with the Department of Education, we are aware and we are guaranteed that indeed it's going to happen. We must not be members who are fault-finding members or go to fault-finding missions.
Honorable Deputy.
Siyabonga Somlo.
Siyabonga, your time has expired. The next speaker is Honorable Esther Kurratbansi for 2 minutes.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, Honorable Members. The Schools Readiness Program 2020 clearly showed that most schools were not ready to accept learners in June, like Jambula Primary in Magabeni. Partly due to the lockdown, most schools' management teams and SEMs have not worked consistently to rectify the problems of ablution facilities and other key infrastructure maintenance and expansions. This was confirmed, of course, by the non-opening or early closing of some schools. Honorable Premier highlights the 10-year schools transformation program. COVID-19 has enforced SOPs which speak to norms and standards in terms of space requirements based on social distancing, compulsory hygiene consideration in terms of ablution and water provision, the need for quality nutrition where school kitchen specifications must consider equipment safety and staff and learner comfort. Honorable members, COVID-19 is caused by a minute virus that we can't see, but its massive effects are felt. Hence, we must focus on basic human health and education needs. Hence, the district health school teams must be highly active now. The Department of Education must resolve that. The remaining mud schools and those with pits must be either closed or rebuilt. The main message of COVID-19 is simple. We must get the basics right because cleanliness is close to godliness. Honorable Premier, COVID-19 signages must be prioritized in schools, and also we must investigate why PPEs are being unevenly distributed currently. I want to thank the officials for the comprehensive report. I feel these should be strengthened with some stats to be done to point to areas that need budgets for our schools reopening on the 24th of August. I want to end by saying where there's a will, there's a way. We did not need COVID-19 to be a catalyst for political and departmental will to get things right.
Thank you. Your time has expired.
Thank you.
The next speaker is for 2 minutes, Honorable M.E. Phakathi. He has tabled an apology. We will move to the next speaker for 2 minutes, Honorable S.E. Manqele of the ACDP. Honorable Manqele.
Thank you, Speaker. Greeting you in the name of Jesus Christ. ACDP has noted the functioning of schools program, and we have got few concerns, although there are good things as well. But let me start with our concern. There is a lack in communication between parents and teachers, which results in parents being uninformed as to which and what is happening in the school. The screening process becomes delayed to one of the persons screening over 100 of learners, which delay the commencement of the lessons. Educators are unable to perform efficiently due to their time they spend in COVID management. And due to social distancing, there is a shortage of educators. Educators and learners' ability to function adequately is affected due to the fear of COVID-19 virus. Hence, they become nervous, which impairs their concentration and results in their performance being poor. Although the learners are attempting to try their best in preparation for examination, they are unable to receive their proper education, leading to failure in metric results. Thus, is being disadvantaging to the learners. Wearing the mask the entire school day is preventing of the spread of COVID-19 can also be detrimental to the learners for those who have medical conditions such as breathing problem and asthma. We as HDP believe that the department should revise the issue of the calendar of learners. If possible, make all learners to start afresh in 2021. However, we are pleased to note
Honorable Manqele, your time has expired.
Thank you very much, Speaker.
The next speaker for 3 minutes is the Honorable Dr. Aikika.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. It is time that education gets its house in order. The ANC must fast realize that the decisions you make and the actions you take right from the top must not result in bequeathing our children to debt, hunger, and ignorance as a result of bending your knee to pressure from your social partner voter base. Please insist on putting our children first, not political expediency. And I'm not sure that SAPTU trusts you, Honorable Mjali. So let us make a few acute observations. Number one, we must make sure that schools have enough COVID items and protocols to replenish these, so we don't have incidents such as where a 12-year-old was raped because she was sent away because the school did not have additional masks and protocols not in place to deal with it. We must make sure that SLA agreements must not indemnify the department from escaping from quality control. We must make sure that schools follow proper protocols when cases of COVID are identified in them. Too many days of teaching are lost as a result of not following the protocols. Keeping schools clean is of utmost importance in the fight against COVID. We have a shortage of 2,147 cleaners and 1,307 screeners, and there must be an intense effort to ensure that there is a reprioritization at least of EPWP funding to rectify this. I'm worried that although 3,480 tanks have been delivered and provided to schools, all of them were not cleaned, taps were not repaired, we saw this, and we know of some schools that didn't even need these tanks, like Zamogutle and Lennoxton Primary in Newcastle. So we also have a problem of the sharing of textbooks in our province, and we know that this nullifies physical distancing if textbooks are shared. This shortage of textbooks ranges between 50% to 85%, and it is a matter of disquiet. Honorable members, recent scandals have rocked this department, and they will certainly not be the last. We maintain that this department is a cauldron of corruption. Accountability, while it appears to be effected, must not be selective. Scapegoating must neither be practiced nor defended. And the chowing must end. Madam Speaker, when I listen to our spectator president talking about fighting corruption these days, I think of the Corsican proverb that says, the dog barks, the pig eats. We must put our citizens first, we must put our children first, and we must put our parties last. That is our responsibility. Thank you, Madam Chairperson. Madam Speaker.
The next member for 5 minutes is Honorable T.P. Mthethwa.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. We were shocked to learn that teachers and staff were not trained.
Honorable Mthethwa, sicela dadewethu, sicela uvule i-video recordings dadewethu.
Ivulile.
Okay, Honorable Member.
Angazi ke noma usiyakubona.
Ayivuliwe, Honorable Member. Ayivuliwe.
Ivulile. I don't know.
Uvele ubuso bakho.
Ngivulile nje yona.
Honorable Member, you may continue whilst you try to switch the video on.
Are you very much? Are you very?
No, you're not. But continue. Continue, Honorable Member. You are not.
Okay.
Your video. Continue, Honorable Member. Thank you.
We were shocked to learn that teachers and staff were not trained on how to use cleaning materials. To those who were provided with training, it was of a poor quality. They themselves did not understand what was expected from them to ensure COVID compliance in schools. We hope that this was resolved by the department and school management. I can mention one principal in Nongoma, where we visited the school, and he said they are most of the material there, but it doesn't know how to use it. The PPEs, some of the PPEs were stolen in some schools and did not receive enough PPEs. Another concern to us was the quality of the PPEs provided to school. It was questionable, especially because the department had paid large sums of money. As the IFP, we were also concerned about the issue learner transport. Most learners are still using Omalume, and they were not having transport, and some of these Omalume were not trained. We are pleading with the department to say, in future, let us make sure that the school that are supposed to be having learner transport, they need to be provided for, and as well as there must be a budget provided for, so that we do away with the issues of Omalume. We also plead with the Public Works to say, Public Works, it was obvious that most of the school, when you go to school, they were not, issue of renovation were not finalized, but they were saying, we are waiting for Public Works to repair a borehole, to do another thing. But we are saying, Public Works, do your work, because we are failing the Department of Education. When we were visiting schools, I think some schools with disabled learners, especially in primary schools, were neglected. They were not given the PPEs, and they were expected to go to school. We are saying every learner in KZN is the same. They need to have a similar treatment. We also wish to indicate issues of thermometer. When we visited schools, most thermometers were not working. When you go and they do testing, it will register 00, and it is then very difficult for school to know whether learners that are in the school are having a correct temperatures. And okunye somlomo, uma ufike ey'koleni, iy'ngane bebibolekana ama-mask. Ngafika kwesinye isikole sasikade ngedlula nje ngoba ngibona ukuthi iy'ngane zazingekho kwi-social distancing. I even spoke with umhlonishwa KK who was leading us. Uthisha omkhulu i-thermometer yakhe ingasebenzi, othisha besemagethi, teachers without ama-PPEs. Uma uthisha engenayo i-PPE ebese where are your PPEs? Athi I was given, but if ngiyikhohliwe, hayi ningeboleke. We cannot allow a situation esinjalo, because if teachers are starting to borrow ama-PPEs, they are teaching iy'ngane ukuthi i-PPE iyeboleka and they are killing the nation. But that thing was reported and the director promised to take care of that. And also issue of the service providers. It was very difficult to us to see a service provider when we were told that we were at Mkanyawut. What district director would know? PPEs, izinto hand washing basin akakafiki. But angimangali, that was his remark. Angimangali ngoba zonke izinto ziqale south. Uma ke iqale south kusho ukuthi uma ifika eMkhanyakude yoqala eMtubi ize Big 5 umkhanye uJozini nomhlabi yalingana yofika after 4 months. And we queried that because that is killing the nation. Uma district director, not because of his liking, but as I end up as I say ukuthi i-situation sisho njalo. We are saying we are one KZN. Ingane yaseThekwini uma ithola something, neyakwamhlabi yalingana ithole something. I wish also on behalf of the IFP to thank Abotisha. They dedicated themselves.
Honorable Member, your time has expired.
Okay.
And the next member is Honorable NPF Mavuso for 10 minutes.
Honorable Speaker, Honorable Premier, Honorable Members, ladies and gentlemen. Honorable Speaker, kindly allow me to quickly remind the honorable members that in our last Portfolio Committee meeting on the 31st of July 2020, we were agreed, Honorable Kika, Honorable Dlamini, that the department is going to furnish us with monthly reports on infection rates, on the PPEs, on water and sanitation progress, on infrastructure, and the plan on National School Nutrition Program and the food distribution. It's just a reminder that we all have a collective responsibility to ensure that our schools are indeed functional. Honorable Speaker, this sitting sits at a time when we are celebrating the Women's Month, when we're calling for total women and girl children's emancipation, their protection and freedom from all forms of violations and abuse. It is a time that the ANC calls for women independence through the provision of quality education for them to be avid readers and competitive citizenry, like Comrade Nzala Nxumalo, who is an internationalist and whose values are still respected as of today. Honorable Speaker, the National Development Plan's aspirations speak to the elimination of poverty and reduction of inequality by 2030, and this goal can be achieved the educators that are employed under the Employment of Educators Act, Act 76 of 1998, particularly in this new normal called COVID-19. The Act allows the department to employ the suitably qualified educators that get profiled in line with the subjects that they teach. The demand and supply of educators is determined by the post-provisioning norm, normally known as PPN, against the total number of learners that are admitted in schools. Though some schools have challenges with the supply of educators, with most educators teaching across grades and phases due to the PPN in small, struggling and non-viable schools pre-COVID-19. The current educator-learner ratio of 1:20 allows educators to give individual attention to learners. This directive was evident during the school functionality. There are some schools, however, even during this period, like Tubalete Secondary School, where the educators are still overloaded and the accounting educator must be appointed. The shortage of educators affects learners' performance. We believe, Honourable Speaker, that the department will continue encouraging schools to declare educators in line with curricular needs and further ensure that those educators that have been declared as surplus move to the schools that they have been placed into, so that the gap of vacancy rate in schools is closed and relevant, suitably qualified educators remain in schools. We appreciate, Honourable Speaker, that the department allows schools to contest the PPN when learner numbers increase, but firmly believe that the PPN can be revised so that no learner gets compromised and marginalized, as every learner has the right to equal access to education. Honourable Speaker, honourable members, Congress appreciates the massive work that is done by the department in ensuring that educators are developed during this pandemic period, with educators using revised ATPs and timetables. The teaching and learning services through the subject advisors ensures that educators are workshopped through sharing best practices using email, WhatsApp, and other electronic devices on the revised approaches in different subjects. SASAMs and LURITs that are linked to the management devices enables the system to easily detect dropouts, attendance of educators and learners, duplicate learners, and when schools are alleged to have inflated the learner numbers. The ANC, Honourable Speaker, appreciates that the department continues to investigate such and holds perpetrators accountable, as these have financial implications. Curriculum management, curriculum coverage and delivery happens in schools, with the SMT members being hands-on in monitoring such. Extra tuition has commenced. The SMT members monitor educators and learners' work. They monitor ongoing assessment with diagnostic analysis that is being currently done, Honourable Speaker. There are catch-up plans and subject improvement plans with targets in schools. The schools also have programs of the progressed, the risk and struggling learners in challenging subjects. The ANC has noticed that rural districts like Mkhanyakude have a huge number of progressed learners, but we're confident that the said program for improvement and the progress made by the progressed learners will be submitted to the portfolio committee as agreed in our last meeting. Honourable Speaker, the department has ensured that through KZN Circular number 57, that psychosocial and emotional support is given to every personnel in the system during this pandemic. The department, through the national directive, has established transversal teams across the departments like health, social development, working in partnership with organizations like Love Life, Lifeline, Red Cross, MIT, Star for Life. These officials bring expertise, exercising their mandates and core responsibilities for psychosocial provision to the educators, learners, non-teaching staff, and the officials of the department. The Leadership Collective offers counseling, it allays fears and offers anxiety management to all the stakeholders, as during this COVID-19 people die, there are job losses, learners see their future going down the drain as they wonder of what is going to happen to their future. We see hopes being raised through counseling, motivation, and anxiety management. Learners acquire self and determination study skills when schools have to temporarily close for fumigation when there have been confirmed cases in schools. These teams, Honorable Speaker, educate and raise awareness about health protocols of social and physical distancing, washing hands, and other health protocols. The psychosocial teams, Honorable Speaker, instills respect and love of protecting each other through proper wearing of face masks. Teamwork is always encouraged by these teams. The health services and health wellness is offered to employees that confront health challenges, with referrals being made in cases of serious health problems. Referrals are also made to DSD social workers and to psychologists, as they are specialists in guidance, counseling, mentoring, and remedial education. The ANC is reiterating the call of ensuring are afforded permanent social workers, psychologists, speech therapists, among the few. It is evident that during this period, social workers and psychologists are overstressed, hence the call for their permanency in the districts. I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Member. The next speaker for 10 minutes is Honorable LXH Songwa Mazala to respond on behalf of the Chairperson of the Portfolio Committee. Chairperson Mazala.
Honorable Speaker, honorable members of the House, thank you very much for according us time to respond to the honorable members. We have raised their concerns, their questions, and their discomfort around the business of education. But I want to start off by saying all your concerns, honorable members, are noted, from Honorable Mchali up to Honorable Mavuso. I want us to agree on an approach as members of the Portfolio Committee that all our concerns are going to be reduced into Portfolio Committee agenda items, because all your issues are correct. You have analyzed and you have diagnosed the problem in the education sector. But there are just one or two things that I want to pick up. Especially, I'll start with Honor because he was scientific. And I thought, let me just be more scientific and quote a research that is published on the Department of Health website, where she talks about children, that it is really was not advisable, it's not backed up by any research to send back children to school. Honorable Dlamini, with all due respect, risk to children who are less than 19 years. The last studies from around the world show that children are much less likely to acquire COVID-19 than adults. Less than 4% of total infections worldwide are in children under 19 years. Similarly, the mortality rate in children is exceptionally low around the world. As an example, in Italy, out of 32 deaths reported on the 25th of May 2020, only 4 of these, which is 0.01%, were in children under 19 years. In South Africa, up until the 15th of June, there had been only 3 deaths, which is 0.2%, reported in children between 0 to 9 years, and only 5 deaths in children between 10 to 19 years, which is 0.3%. That is a scientific report that is available for anyone to read. Just 1 or 2 issues. I think on issues of PPP, we agree. Honorable Mavuso has refreshed all of us. We have taken far-reaching resolutions in terms of PPE. We said the department must report to all of us every month on the availability, on the inadequacy in distribution, as Honorable Takur Rajbans has mentioned. Those issues are captured in on our resolutions. Honorable Mangela, I cannot agree with you more on issues of the detrimental nature of using masks, especially for children who have got a problem with breathing, be it either tuberculosis or asthma. Honorable Kaluza, you are spot on issues of infrastructure, both hard and software. We need that to be fixed. We are very conscious of the fact that we have not received new money but cuts, and the Department of Education has really suffered. It is on its back foot now. Like you have said, the autism school now will have to stop, and some other projects, but also the important issue that you mentioned, that the doors of learning shall be open to all. We need to open them and also sustain the opening of those doors. The issues of supply of Jojo tanks, Honorable Lojwa, thermometers not working, that issue was also raised by Honorable Mteto. We all agree. We read through the report. It is there. It is recorded for all of us to read. There is a problem. There was an indication that when you are in...
Yes, for instance, if I want to make it at home.
Olani Dinela of the Legislature admin, please mute your mic. We apologize, Honorable Chairperson. You can continue.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. I was responding on the matter raised by Honorable Mlojwa and Honorable Teta with regards to the dealings with rainwater, that we are not entirely happy. We have punctuated also that during issues of toilets, also raised by Honorable Taluza, issues of thermometers, Jojo tanks, no stands. We have asked the department to give us a report that is specify how far we've gone on that issue. Also, the issue that was raised by Honorable Kika, issues of irregularities, the issues of inconsistencies in reporting. The portfolio committee is at liberty. It is an oversight structure. If there are issues that needs to be reported in the Hawks or with the SAPS or also to the public protector, you know how to go about that. But we must say, Honorable Speaker, that we are not tolerating a non-performance as the portfolio committee. We are not tolerating a corruption. We've said that mouthfully on the 31st of July. We are just not tolerating even shoddy workmanship. Honorable Mchali, spot on again about the research given to all of us by Professor Karim. There is the kind of arrangements of opening schools show a balance of future and the safety of our learners, but we are all going through uncharted waters. This is a new thing, and nobody has a monopoly of dealing with this. We are all learning, and we must also, us from the ruling party, must be open to be taught by other people. We must welcome other views. And I do want to close by saluting the teachers, as all the other honorable members have mentioned. Honorable Mavuso, I'm happy that you have mentioned the issue of teachers, which are our soldiers. There is shortage. In fact, COVID-19 has exposed the inequalities in the Department of Education. And I am saying, members, as I've said, all our concerns must be reduced into items of the portfolio committee. Issues of LSN schools. Honorable Mteto, I would like you to give us the name of the school where masks were being shared so that we take that with the department. We can't tolerate that. It's unfair to share those items because those are health issues. The other issue that I think is very important is an issue of transport, which I want to propose that we bring it back as our agenda item and deal with it thoroughly and look at what is best for all of us as the province. In terms of implementing agents, honored members, I do think that is about time that we bring the implementation agents before the portfolio committee so that we ask them on M&E, those schools that were not finished, toilets not supplied, renovations half done. Those are the issues that we need to deal with at the portfolio committee level. Demand and supply of teachers. Honorable Mavuso, thank you for raising that. It's another issue that we need to look into because the department does have a relief in terms of employing shortage, substitute teachers. We just need to ask a question, how much of those have been employed at this point in time? Because really you are correct, it affects teaching and learning. We need to declare learners in line with curriculum needs rather than a PPN. PPN, honorable members, must be revised. We need to revise it for the sake of our country, for the sake of our children. Our children can't go through what we went through. So what you are raising, Honorable Mavuso, is quite a sensitive issue, which I know will spark a debate in the quarters also of our labor unions. We noted, Honorable Speaker, as Honorable Mavuso is saying, that the department does have catch-up plans. We ask them to put on timelines and determine for all of us what are the financial implications thereof. We do want to say, as the portfolio committee, we applauded the department for endeavoring to do more with less. But the very other issue which you have raised at the end of your debate, Honorable Mavuso, psychosocial emotional support is fundamental for all our teachers, learners, office-based staff security, and so forth. Because COVID-19 does not only bring a physical pain, it also brings psychological and spiritual pain. So I'd like the department to pay more attention on this area, equally with all other departments, including the Department of Health. On learners progressed, Umkanyagude and Zululand, we saw during the presentation on the 31st of July, there wasn't much of a program that addresses that. We have since, Honorable Speaker, asked the department to come back with a proper implementation plan on that. It's an issue that Honorable Mavuso raised there. She's still raising it again here. We don't want our children to be left behind because they are either coming from rural or urban schools. One member, Honorable Mtetwa, raised an issue of inequality. I think we must endeavor during this 6th Parliament to deal with inequalities, because this COVID-19, as I've alluded earlier on, it has actually exposed the challenges that we have. They were bad, but they're even more bad now. Thank you, Honorable, for giving us time to respond. Thank you.
Thank you. Honorable members, we have now arrived at the end of our debates for today. We want to thank you all for participating today and request you that as you continue to do your work in your constituency, do remember to keep to the regulations according to alert level 3 that we are currently in. That then brings us to the end of the orders and discussions for today. But honorable members, we will meet you tomorrow in the Women's Parliament that will be online, and the House arises until the 25th of August in the special city.
Siyabonga wewe Somlomo.
Siyabonga kodwa nje siqaba
uphethu lo usevela ngoba sesiqedile.
Thank you, Chairperson. Siqaba ukhoza nje ukuthi ebuya nje usezo